I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, tonight's public hearing is on the draft environmental impact statement for the change of zone application, which is CZ 107-999 or 999, Gray Barn Sayville Plan Development District, the proposed action. I would ask the town clerk, Olga Murray, if she would please read the hearing notice.
Thank you. Good evening. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Islip, as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, will hold an in-person public hearing on December 1st, 2021 at 5 p.m. located at Islip Town Hall West, 401 Main Street, Islip, New York, on the draft environmental impact statement for change of zone application CZ 2017-009, Gray Barn, Sayville, Plan Development District, the proposed action. A copy of the draft environmental impact statement for the action may be obtained online at the town's website or from Ron Meyer, Commissioner of the Town of Islip. Comments on the draft environmental impact statement for the proposed action are requested and will be accepted at the public hearing, and written comments will be accepted at the Department of Planning and Development until 12:30 p.m. December 31st, 2021. Islip Town Board, Olga H. Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Olga. Before we begin this evening, I'm going to ask the town attorney if he would give us a brief overview on exactly what this DIS is actually all about. JR, if you would.
Thank you. Tonight's hearing is being held in order for the town board to hear public comments on a document known as the draft environmental.
You have to take it out.
Is that better? Okay. Tonight's hearing is being held in order for the town board to hear public comments on a document known as the draft environmental impact statement, or the DEIS. The purpose of this document is to analyze potential significant adverse environmental impacts of a proposed action and evaluate whether those impacts can be avoided or minimized. Many written comments on the draft environmental impact statement have already been submitted to the town board, and the board will address all of these comments when it prepares a final environmental impact statement. The purpose of tonight's hearing is for the town board to hear additional public comments on the draft environmental impact statement. The draft environmental impact statement was prepared by the applicant, not the town. The town, in consultation with its consultant, VHB, has reviewed the draft environmental impact statement. After pointing out multiple deficiencies and requiring multiple revisions, the town board, by resolution dated June 15th, 2021, was able to accept the DEIS as complete and adequate for public review. The town's acceptance of the DEIS does not indicate that the town board concurs with the conclusions of the document, nor does it commit the town to an approval of the proposed action. It is important to clarify that tonight's hearing is not a hearing on the applicant's underlying change of zone. There will be future public hearings before both the planning board and the town board on such application. After tonight's hearing, the record will remain open until December 31st at 12:30 for additional written comments from the public. This public input is essential to the town board's evaluation of the environmental impact statement.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to the speakers, there are a few logistical comments we need to make. Just ask everyone to be cognizant of the exits, should there be any kind of emergency. Everyone who has signed up to speak will have 3 minutes. There's a timer in front, so you can kind of keep track of what time you have left. I would just ask that because we have so many speakers, there are many people waiting outside because of COVID restrictions and trying to effectuate a orderly kind of hearing. We'll bring them 5 at a time. So I know everyone was given a card after they signed up so that you know what your turn to speak is. And I'll let you know 5 ahead so that you can prepare to get over to where the speakers are going to be lining up to your left, to my right, along the wall there. The other thing I would ask you to be cognizant of is to be respectful. Again, we're here to listen. This is not a question and answer period for the town board. We're here basically to listen to the public's comment. We have received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and letters on this particular application. They have been submitted for the public record. You see that we all have binders in front of us. They are not complete because we will be accepting comments through the end of December. So everyone will have ample opportunity to subject matter. We'll also be having a brief presentation on the part of the applicant, not a question and answer. They're going to give us a brief overview of the project so that everyone who's coming up to comment understands what they have that they're proposing at this point in time. I do believe that that just about covers everything. And there are restrooms off the hall to your left. And there's also an overflow area in the gymnasium that's due west of this building. At the end of the building, seats have been set up there and there's a screen there. And this is being live streamed. So anyone who wants to follow us at home after you've spoken, you may do so on live stream on Facebook. So again, once you've spoken, if you could exit and give an opportunity for someone else to come in, we would appreciate it. And because of COVID, we were not able to accommodate as many people sitting in the room tonight as we would have liked. And also, if anything that you're saying has already been said when you come up to speak, if you would just indicate that you support those comments so that we can yield your time to the next person and we can try to get through this as efficiently as possible. And I think that is it. And right now, I would ask the representatives of the applicant to come forward for a brief 15-minute, and you will be timed too, presentation.
May I just add one thing if I can?
Certainly, Councilman O'Connor.
I know you indicated that our offices have been receiving emails and letters on this since 2017. Mine has as well. I've taken it upon myself to bind them. I offer them to the town clerk to make them a part of the public record. If it's duplicative, I apologize.
Thank you, Councilman O'Connor. Sir, you may proceed. And if you would just give your name to the stenographer for the record. You are going to have to speak right into the microphone. And also, just to remind everyone, there are disposable microphone covers. So after you're finished speaking, if you would remove the cover so that it's ready for the next speaker. And also, the podium is covered with an antimicrobial film, Silver Defender, so that is totally germ-free. You may proceed.
Guy W. Germano and Cahill PC, 4250 Veterans Memorial Highway. I represent the applicant. Madam Supervisor, members of the town board, it is our pleasure to be here tonight to listen to the comments from the community very carefully and to record them and to consider them as
Guy, I can't even hear you, please.
consider them as part of this
Thank you.
application. Okay, thank you. I have with me today Mr. Greg Reckler and Mr. Mitchell Reckler. They are the principals and owners of the project. And to start off, I would like to introduce Mr. Greg Reckler, who will make some brief comments with regard to the application and his interest in the community.
Can you hear me okay, everyone? Okay, great. Just give me one moment to. Can you hear me if I'm standing like this? No? Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Let me put this 1 minute.
If you would pull the microphone out so that you can really get it close.
Okay, so is this good?
Yep,
Can you hear
that's
me?
good.
Okay, good evening, Supervisor Carpenter and members of the town board. My name is Greg Reckler. I'm here with my cousin Mitchell Reckler. We are co-managing partners of Reckler Equity. Our family has been active members of the Islip business community since 1968. Today, we are one of the largest property owners here in Suffolk County, as well as in the town of Islip. Our tenants are some of the biggest employers in the town. They're East West Industries, Dr. Pepper, Nature's Bounty, Winterbread, Package Oil, and Spirit Pharmaceutical, to name a few. I bring this up because these are the companies that provide some of the best quality and highest paying jobs here in Islip. But they continue to have problems recruiting employees due to the fact that there's a severe lack of Class A rental homes, both here in the town and throughout the county. Mitch and I became aware of this over 18 years ago and decided that if businesses were going to continue to grow and thrive here on Long Island, we needed to create a level of housing that will prevent our young local workforce from leaving Long Island in search of better quality living. This is why we created Gray Barn. It was designed specifically for Long Islanders. It's by no means cookie cutter. Gray Barn was inspired by the 19th century South Shore shingle manor homes with gambrel roofs and charming details throughout, while providing oversized rental homes with modern amenities. This application for Gray Barn Sayville has been pending since March of 2017. In that time, we've met with hundreds of Sayville residents and have listened to their concerns and to what they had to say. The most common concern we heard was who are these renters? So this summer we did a detailed survey.
Okay, all right. Right now, let's lay out some ground rules here. I said in the very beginning to please be respectful of the speaker, whomever it is. Everyone will have their turn to speak and everyone has the right to be heard. So I'm not going to tolerate any shouting out from the audience. Everyone has the opportunity to speak and be heard. So I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So the most common concern we heard was who are the renters. This summer we did a detailed survey of who's living in Gray Barn. This summer we did a detailed survey of who's living in Gray Barn at Amityville. I know Amityville is in Sayville and Sayville is in Amityville, but this is what we found. 62% of our residents are millennials and Gen Z. That means almost 2/3 are 41 years or younger. The other third are predominantly Gen X or baby boomers who are currently in the workforce and are essentially empty nesters. Their positions in their jobs, there are sales executives, nurses, law enforcement, managers, educators, engineers, physicians, and a vast majority of them all work here on Long Island. The average household income at Gray Barn is $170,000 per year. It should be noted that the average household income in Greater Sayville is $116,000 per year. This data proves that, that Mitchell and my original theory that we need quality rental housing for Long Island, the Long Island workforce, is essential. In addition, the type of housing that will bring young people to the community will also be the future home buyers in Sayville. As it relates to the current proposed plan, these are the things we heard. No perimeter park, create large open spaces, no 4-story buildings, reduce nitrogen loading in the Great South Bay by providing sewer capacity to Main Street, create ecological preserves on the property using native species, no retail on the site, provide traffic mitigation, provide a greater mix of housing, which includes for sale and senior housing, provide a community arts center, increase buffers around the surrounding community, reduction in both the total density and the number of buildings that are currently being proposed. These are all things that we are considering. As you know, we are all here tonight to continue to listen to the community, and when it's appropriate, we will create a revised plan that incorporates these comments. For nearly 5 years, our team has performed exhaustive studies on impacts such as traffic, environment, economic, and many other aspects of this project. This is now rolled up into a 10,000 plus page document called DEIS, which is posted on the Gray Barn website as well as the town's, along with other important facts and information. To explain the DEIS in greater detail, I'm going to turn the mic over to Guy Germano and Chick Voorhees.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. At this time, I'm going to ask, I think the DEIS has been out for a couple of months now. I think everyone is really familiar with the plan, the number of units that are proposed in the DEIS. And so we're not going to go through the plan itself. But I'm going to ask Mr. Voorhees to come up and briefly discuss the DEIS document itself. Chick?
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the town board, town staff, and representatives. For the record, my name is Chick Voorhees of Nelson Pope Voorhees. I am a certified environmental professional and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and I'm the lead consultant in the preparation of the DEIS for this project. We worked with a team of extensive professional expertise. Many of them are here tonight to hear comments. And all participated in the preparation of the draft DEIS. The DEIS, as was indicated by JR, is consistent with the final scope that was issued by this town board after extensive scoping meetings in this room. That final scope was adopted on June 19th, 2018. Since that time, we worked on the document. It was subject to multiple reviews by town staff and its consultants. And what you have before you is a very complete document for the hearing tonight. The DEIS includes a project description that Mr. Germano just mentioned that discusses the project and its details. It includes existing environmental conditions to create a baseline for analysis. It analyzes potential environmental impacts, both adverse and beneficial. It includes mitigation measures, as is required by seeker. It also includes an extensive list of alternatives to the project that was determined by the draft scope and is all consistent with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or seeker. The DEIS includes a number of specialized studies, such as site testing reports, phase 1, phase 2 type documents. Some of you may know them as a market study, economic and fiscal studies, groundwater and surface water studies, noise analysis and traffic studies, ecological studies, as well as archaeological studies. And those are mostly appendix documents that are part of the DEIS. Our team is here tonight to listen to comments on the DEIS. As I said, many of our members are here. Once the hearing is closed and all written comments are received, we would look to assist the town of a final EIS that addresses all of the substantive comments on the draft EIS. The town will then review the final EIS to ensure that it's complete, and after acceptance, we'll issue findings to complete the seeker process. So we look forward to continuing the EIS process to provide complete information to you as the town board for decision-making purposes. And that concludes my remarks so that we can get to hearing from the public. Thank you very much.
Does that conclude your presentation? Okay, thank you very much. We will now go to speakers. Again, these have all been numbered. Everyone has a number. So the first 5 speakers, if your number is 1 through 5, you should be lined up. The first speaker is John Verdone. Again, 3 minutes.
Thank you. You wipe it? You can take the mask off, right? I don't know. I think I might have to give my firstborn after this one. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, Town Board. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes to speak tonight. Everyone hear me? Great. As you know, John Verdone, 20 East Over Road, Sayville, New York. As you know, many people here tonight are opposed to this project, and some of them really don't feel all that comfortable coming to speak tonight. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and hopefully we could address what their concerns are. My first question is, how many people here are against the zone change? Please raise your hand. Great, thank you. Now, to be fair, I would like to see a show of hands. How many people here are for the zone change? Overwhelming majority of people are against this zone change. And through my friends and my family, the people I've spoken to, 97% of the people I know are against this zone change. Another question I have, how many feel this proposal will have an adverse environmental impact based on response? And there's also a 10,000-page DEIS survey. I don't know how many have read 10,000 pages of the DEIS. So we can even have our government read surveys on proposed budgets. So this is concerning to me. I've been a Sayville resident for 31 years. I've supported this town, this community. I serve on many community boards, etc. Please, please take this in serious consideration. Majority of the people in Sayville are against this proposal, this massive proposal. This is not meant for Sayville. The DEIS survey has plenty of things in it to tell us why we shouldn't do it. And I appreciate your time and appreciate your support of Sayville residents, ISO residents, etc. Have a great holiday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Verdone. Next speaker, Kyle Strober. On deck is James Carter.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me all right? All right, my name is Kyle Strober. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and for everyone the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the 150 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, New York. I'm the executive director for the Association for a Better Long Island. We're a pro-economic development advocacy organization that supports multifamily housing here on Long Island to attract young people, but also seniors who want to age in place. And I'm not going to go into all the need that we have here on Long Island, but in fact, I'm going to talk about my mother. My mother is Gertrude Lanigan. She's a 70-something Irish Catholic who grew up in Boston and moved to New York City to be a New York City teacher. She met my father, sorry about that, and they moved to the South Shore of Long Island in 1978 and bought a home. And in my entire life, she said, this house is going to be your problem when I pass away. And she said that because of 3 main reasons. Number one, it's probably an incredibly tiresome thought to unpack or pack up 40 years of your life. Number two is that because she wanted to spend time with myself and her grandkids and be there to help babysit when we have to work and be at events like tonight or when they have Little League baseball games. And number three is because back in her generation, it was oftentimes seen as a knock on your financial stability when you sold your home and moved to a condo apartment, if that you could not afford to live in your house anymore. Well, after 2 knee replacements and a fall 2 years ago, she finally last December said, I've had enough. I live in a colonial. We sleep on the 2nd floor. My laundry is in the basement. I am a burden. It's a burden for me to go up and down the stairs. And she gave in and she moved into an apartment, which is something that the Recklers are here in Sayville are trying to build. Now, I know this project's not perfect and a lot of people here are against it, but we need multifamily housing here on Long Island. And I know Greg and Mitchell for a long time. Their family has been here for 60 years. And there are companies and corporations that would view this as a budget line that would say Sayville, Long Island. But this family has been doing it here for decades, and they are going to work with the community to make sure that the final product is something that works, but also addresses a vital need so Gertrude Lanigan can age in place and see her kids play baseball. I thank you for your time tonight, and I thank you for giving everyone the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next speaker, James Carter. On deck is Deborah Carter. Again, I'm going to ask you to please be ready to come speak. Line up along the wall there. Numbers 5 through 10 should be ready, but we've had 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5 should be all lined up. You pass? Okay, so that was James Carter, Deborah Carter. Our passing takes us to number 5, Stephen Hendrickson.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. How are you tonight? My name is Stephen Hendrickson, and I am a resident of Sayville. I've been a resident of the 3 towns, Oakdale through Sayville, for the last 54 years of my life. Number one, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight on the board and being our elected representatives. And I'd also like to thank the Recklers for coming tonight and listening. I know it's hard. You're probably going to hear a lot of tough words tonight, but I do appreciate you being here. To the last speaker, I would actually disagree. So projects like this are actually taxing our town to a point where us as homeowners can't afford to live in a town like Sayville anymore. So, Sayville, as we all know, and the local towns are very expensive to live in. And this increase in infrastructure really, really taxes us. And I think the only point I want to make tonight, because we do not have a lot of time, is my volunteer service in the fire department for the last 34 years. As a member of the fire department, how many volunteers are here tonight? Firemen. And EMS, community ambulance. These people every single night wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, all day to save people's lives. Adding this number of lives to the town is not something that these towns are built for, right? We cannot wake up every night. I go to Affinity, nursing care almost every, I've got members here once, twice a week to help people in the middle of the night. But Oakdale, Bohemia, over near there where we have a ton of apartments, all these big buildings, not little residential homes, big buildings. Adding 1,300 apartments in Sayville times 5 people is just insane, and we're not built for that. I mean, I respect the fact of building homes for people who can afford to live here. I really, really do, and I want it. We just can't maintain the infrastructure. To imagine the number of calls for EMS on 4 times, I don't know what the average people are, but 4 times 1,300. Imagine the number of COVID calls, heart attacks. It's just not countable. And people like me who have to wake up in the middle of the night to help these people. I want to help people, but adding to the town, and I just want you to consider, I don't know if you guys have considered, we only have like 100 volunteers active. How many more people are the Recklers going to bring to the table to volunteer to Sayville? In an apartment building, none. We need long-term members, right? So tonight, I just thank the people being here. I thank you for listening. I thank you for listening. I hope you can listen to that portion and really think about, how this is going to impact our town. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Rhonda Lodel. On deck is number 7, James Carroll.
Hi, I'm here. I live in Sayville. I'm wondering about the traffic, all right? Traffic is ridiculous. The other morning, it took me 15 minutes.
Ma'am, you need to give us your name and address for the
Oh,
record.
Rhonda Lodel, 395 Hillside Avenue, West Sayville. As I was saying, I went down Lakeland Avenue the other day. It took me 4 lights to get across because of the amount of cars on it. The traffic is ridiculous. To get off of Chester Avenue will take 2 minutes and 27 seconds. to get off of a road. To get anywhere, to go past the railroad, you have to go through all of West Sayville to get there, to get to the railroad. The companies that are local, they must be all owned by Richter, because I don't make that much money and I work for a Long Island company. My son is an architect. He can't afford to spend $2,500 on an apartment. He can't afford, and he's a licensed architect. So whatever they're coming up with, I don't know. Where were they for the last 5 years that they owned the property and not one thing was done till the last 2 or 3 months? Where were they? They did nothing. They didn't mow. They left it like a piece of garbage. And if that's what's going to come in 5 years, be the same thing. And how does zoning work? That we can just change zones. I can't put a fence up in my yard without coming to you guys and getting permits. I don't understand how they could get away with it. I really don't. The zoning board, can I put a fence up without coming to you guys and getting permits and whatnot? And they'll tell me, no, you can't do it, or if I'm off an inch or a foot. So that's what I want to know, because I'm not getting answers here. And it looks like they're getting everything they want because they own a few companies. And yes, a lot of people own companies, but they go into the cities. So you know what? Give them their 84 houses. Let them build houses. We don't need more people. Soccer doesn't need more people. Connecticut School District doesn't need it. And I have nothing written on this. I'm just saying how I feel about it, The town's got to look at this and say, what are we adding? We're adding apartments. I live down the block from Garden Apartments. All right? Some of them are empty. And they fly down my street. Is it smart? We going to add more lights? I don't know. I don't get it. I thank you all for what you're doing, but you really have to think about this.
Next speaker, James Carroll. On deck is Susan Verona.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for being here. My name is James Carroll, 81 Shore Drive, Oakdale, New York. I'm one of the millennials that they're talking about that can't afford housing. I'm going to say that's not true. If you're a hard worker and the people that are part of this community, we can afford houses. We can do it. It can be done. Hard work can be done. I'll let you know a little about myself. I'm a veteran. I deployed to the Persian Gulf 2 times for this country. I'm also currently a first responder. I'm a firefighter over here in West Sayville. And I'll just let you know, I've made a career of protecting the people of this community and of this country. And I'm here now to protect them again. I'm going to let you know that this is not what our community needs. It'll tax all of our services, our ambulance. And I mean, I want you to think, if you're waiting on an ambulance, if you're personally waiting, your mother is waiting on it, and they live in Sayville, is it now possibly not going to come because all these extra people are going to be here? You need to think about that. You up here have the opportunity to champion for us, the people. And you saw the hands that were raised. You could be our champion, or you could be the nail in the coffin. It's up to you. And we're not going to forget, and people in this room will not forget what you guys do here. And we're thinking about it. We're thinking about it every day. If we got to drive past there, we see the empty golf course, and we're thinking about it. And I want you to think about it, because it took a lot. I'm losing time with my family to be here, because I believe so strongly in the fact that we need to stop this. And it's hard for me to talk. It's not easy, but I came up here to do it, and I'm begging you to really think about what it's going to do to our community. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your service. Susan, next speaker, Danny Brown.
Susan Rona, Chatham Drive in Oakdale. I recently moved to Susan Rona, 87 Chatham Drive, Oakdale. I recently moved from Nassau to Suffolk to get away from feeling like I was living in Queens because of the overdevelopment. Too many cars on the road, you're on top of each other. But first, I just want to say, I've seen the Gray Barn in Amityville, and it's like the mother of all elephants was dropped in the development. We don't need that in Sayville. All right, I think they're hearing me. And I'm insulted at your comment that you're going to raise the average income of the Sayville people. Who's asking you to do that? Who's asking you to do that? We're happy this way.
Ma'am, if you could please speak into the microphone so the stenographer get it for the record.
Okay. This is going to bring too many cars. When I go to work in Queens, sometimes now it takes me 2 hours to get home in rush hour. You add a couple thousand more cars, who does that help? Nobody. This does nothing to help the quality of life for Sayville. It helps the quality of life for the developers. It enriches their pockets. It doesn't give us anything. It just enriches them. If it's such a great idea to build a Gray Barn, let it help them in their communities. Put Gray Barns where they live. Help their millennials. Put them in Brookville, Muttontown. This project, after having seen it in Amityville, stick out like a sore thumb. There's no way it belongs in Sayville. And you people sitting up there, the politicians, how can you even think this is a good idea? Why would you vote for this for Sayville? It does not match anything in the community. It's out of character, it's massive, it's ugly, it's a monstrosity. Why would you even think that this belongs in Sayville? That's what I wonder. And I'm newly moved here. I've driven around the roads. I don't even know that there are some multi-unit developments because they blend in. I'm not against multi-unit developments, but blend in, stay with the character of the community. Like I say, again, it's just too much. It's just too big and too much. I read somewhere that they would provide a trolley to help with the number of cars. Then we're going to have to deal with trolleys on the streets? Where would the trolley stops be? It's like so silly. By saying you need trolleys, you're acknowledging that there's a traffic problem. And it's not going to help it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Danny Brown. On deck is Robert Lico. We're at number 9.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, good. My name is Donna Brown. I live at 735 Durham Road, Sayville. That's 2 blocks from the golf course. And I've lived in Sayville for 43 years. I love my home. I love my community. And I'm not neutral about the zone change that the Recklers want. They are businessmen, and they do what developers do. They make money. The more, the better. Here lies the problem. They bought a golf course that was zoned AAA residential. They decided the way to make unending profit was to get a PDD that will essentially give them carte blanche. Zero consideration for the fact that building 1,365 apartments in 27 buildings, some 3 and 4 stories high, football field in length would overwhelm this community. Its roads, schools, infrastructure. This is why there is zoning. This is why a simple no zone change is the correct answer. Please hear your constituents. We are the ones who have to live every single day with the consequence of your decision. And just, that was going to be the end of it, but just to say, based on what some of the things I've heard, renters is not necessarily the major concern. When I first got married, we rented. It was a nice little garden apartment in Hauppauge. Sayville has, I believe, 11 different apartment little complexes. They fit into Sayville. One of my children and my granddaughter live in an apartment. So again, it's not about renters and apartments. It's the scope of this program. As far as the perimeter and not wanting parkland, no, the question was who's going to pay for the upkeep of it? Never answered. So it's one of those questions where whatever answer you gave was the wrong answer. No one wants to look outside their front door and see asphalt, parking lot, and a 4-story building. But that's what you're going to saddle this community with. And as far as the listening to the community, I've been at a number of meetings, and I've asked the liaison on their website, what changes have you made from the original plan that I foiled? And so far, nothing has been forthcoming. So if they're listening, I'm not hearing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Robert? Robert Lico? On deck is Mylan Aguilas, that's number 11.
Captain Robert Lico, Candy Avenue, Sayville, 50 years, combat veteran, fireman, long time. Thank you. Well, let me start out with number one. I don't want you people to insult my intelligence. We're talking about a sewer treatment plant. Yes, I personally did 6 of them, okay? What we're gonna have here is a 30-foot pool, 6 of them for that place. You cannot operate a sewage treatment plant without aeration. You can't disguise it, hide it, or put deodorant or anything around it. You have to have open air. So we're gonna have a 30-foot with raw sewage influent in the first pool. Then it goes to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. The sixth is supposedly fairly clear water. When a north wind blows in Sayville, you're not going to be able to walk in that town. Trust me when I tell you this. If you don't want to trust me, I want you to go to West Hampton, South Country Road, and go to the senior citizen housing and smell it. That's the first thing on my mind. It's totally absurd to have a treatment plant. I mean, here's the average person in Sayville driving down Lakeland Avenue. Oh, I think I'll stop at Mary's and pick up some tomatoes and vegetables. I'll make a left turn. Bam! Starrett City. Are you crazy? 4 stories in Sayville? It's totally insane. I don't want to see that person after this meeting that tells me he can't get his mother a place. There's 241 places in Sayville in the community for senior citizens. That's an absolute lie. So we want to keep things straight. Don't tell me about the youth, because at the same time as Green Barn, we have Greenville. We forgot about that. How about the hub? How about South Great River? The only thing different between those and Gray Barn is the hub can go down Veterans Highway to Sunrise Highway. Greenville can get on the South Service Road of Sunrise Highway. Great River can get on Montauk Highway. And you're going to get on Terry Road? Tell me about your impact studies. It's absurd, completely ridiculous. You have 4,000 cars on Terry Road. We've closed off all our entrances to Sayville already. Montauk Highway, Lakeland Avenue. Now we got the targets and we destroyed that area. The only thing we have left to sneak into Sayville from Sunrise Highway is Terry Road. And there's the Gray Barn right in front of us with 4,000 cars. This project is completely ridiculous. It should never be 4 stories. We don't even have 4 stories in our town. What's the next project?
Thank you, sir.
Let's fill in the Great South Bay and build
the Starrett City.
Thank you, sir. Mylin. Next speaker, Brian Link.
I have all these documents that I want to submit. I'm Mylan Auglis. I am at 620 Bohemia Parkway. I am a resident and a president of the Greater Islip Association. So I'm going to try to provide you some facts. So our largest apartment complex in Connecticut District is Colony Park. It has 540 apartments, 158 students attend our district. If we take the ratio of the 540 and the 158, that's 30%. If we apply that to the regular proposal, that is 410 students, not 207 like stated in the DIS. According to the LKMA, who are the consultants contracted by the town, that is a right would generate 144 students. That's if they built the 84 homes. In the LKM response, the projected increase in school-age children seems low, meaning the developer grossly underestimated the projected number of students. Also, in the DIS, it is recorded that for the elementary school, there will be delayed start times of arrival and departure. How many of you want to drop off your kindergartner, then wait a half hour to drop off your fourth grader? Because it's in the DIS. So there you go. Now, the project will potentially add on 7 to 10 more fleets of buses. I don't know about anybody in this room, if they live in the Connecticut District, we are begging for bus drivers. We are begging for matrons. There is a complete shortage, not just in Connecticut, all across Long Island. We are using our secretaries, who of course are CDL licensed, and we're using our administrators to drive buses, because guess what? There's a shortage. But we're going to have to add 7 or 10 buses to this fleet. So now let's talk about the numbers. Reckler wants to give the Connecticut District $6.4 million. You know what it will cost the Connecticut District? $2.4 million, because they will not be covering the true expenses for the 410 students that will be attending our district. We have general ed students, we have special ed students. To educate a general ed student is $16,000. Reckler has it on here as $14,000. To educate a special education student, it costs $53,000. In Reckler's proposal, it will cost about $35,000. I'm not making that up. These numbers came straight from the Connecticut District. So we can take your $6.4 million, and it will cost my district, your district, an additional almost $3 million. So you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Brian Link. On deck is Dave Bloom.
First of all, thank you for having me to speak. My name is Brian Link. I live on 131 Lincoln Avenue. I'm not really close to the project. I'm closer to downtown. I'm also a board member of the Greater Islip Association. I've been a resident of Sayville for almost 40 years. The thing that comes to me all the time, I moved to Sayville from the North Shore in Smithtown. This will completely overwhelm Sayville. I mean, completely overwhelm it. While I have many concerns regarding this massive project being built in a quiet neighborhood of one-family homes, today I will just focus on one thing, the negative impact of increased traffic that this development will create for Lakeland Avenue, including all the cross streets. With this project, the population of Sable will increase almost 20% and add approximately 3,000 more cars to the roads of our small town. As someone who lives just north of the train station, I know firsthand how difficult and dangerous it is to make a turn onto Lakeland or across it. Because of traffic at times, I actually take my life in my hands sometimes and walk. The enormous increase in traffic will not only deter locals from going into downtown Sable, people will avoid shopping and coming to Sable on Main Street because of congestion and lack of parking, and therefore hurt our downtown businesses. Currently, Sable train station has free parking. Neighboring towns such as Bayport and Blue Point also use the station to commute. With this proposed massive build, the availability of parking at the station will be greatly reduced. There will be significant delays at all intersections on Lakeland Avenue compared with the present no-build condition. This will reduce gaps for motorists on side streets at intersections without traffic lights, as well as driveways that cross or enter Lakeland. This will lead to an increased traffic delays as well as potential safety concerns for both motorists and pedestrians. I love Sable. I moved from the North Shore. I love the small town feel. When I tell people I live in Sable, they tell me how much they love Sable. They don't even live in Sable, but they love it. I love that it's quaint, it's walkable. I enjoy walking my dog through town and all the neighborhoods. A project of this size will have a huge increase of traffic. It will devastate the quality of life for myself and all the Sable residents. I strongly recommend the town of Islip to vote for a no zone change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Link. Dave Bloom, followed by Richard Castiera.
Dave Bloom, 38 Captain's Drive, Islip, New York. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the town board. My name is Dave Bloom. I am a lifelong Islip resident. I own homes in Islip. I own a business in Islip. I employ people who live in Islip. Today, I am representing the Long Island Builders Institute and would like to read a statement from them. The Long Island Builders Institute, the largest residential trade association in New York State with over 620 members, a number of which live in the town of Islip, is pleased to provide this statement in support of the proposed Gray Barn at Sayville project, which is subject of today's scope public hearing. This public scoping hearing is intended to allow the community and the town to review the current status of the project and to provide measures which they believe would be beneficial to the community and to ensure that all environmental issues can be mitigated to the extent possible. Obviously, a project such as this one will be modified during the entire process, and Libby looks forward to working with the developer, the town, the community in providing a series of options which will make the project better for everyone. There is no question that Long Island is in desperate need of additional rental apartments. This is especially important for those beginning. This is especially important for those beginning their post-college lives on Long Island and for those who have decided that owning a single-family home no longer meets their needs. Gray Barn at Sayville, modeled after the very successful Gray Barn at Amityville on Route 110, will clearly provide such housing options.
Excuse me, Mr. Bloom. I would just ask everyone to please let the speakers have the courtesy of quiet while they speak so that you can have the same when you speak.
Will clearly provide such housing options for those very important demographic groups throughout the region. Libby is very interested in making sure that all the housing needs of Long Islanders, the town of Islip, and the benefits of this project can come together and enable the town board to find a meaningful manner in which to accomplish these goals. We fully understand that this hearing is the next step in the process and hope that everyone will allow the process to move forward with an open mind about how a fully integrated project on this site can be approved. Thank you very much for your consideration and thank you for the opportunity to participate tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker, Richard Costiera. And speaker 15 is on deck, Steve Brienza. Mr. Costiera?
Hi. I'm very new to the community. I've only been here maybe 4 years. And I'm sorry. Okay.
Into the microphone, please, so they can hear you.
I should know better.
And just your name and address for the record.
Okay, it's Richard Costiera. I'm at 39 Coral Lane in Sayville, which is right down the block from the golf course on Lakeland Avenue. It's the Pinewood Gardens, if anybody's familiar with it. And I came to this community primarily because it was very similar to where I had left in the Pocono region in Pennsylvania. It was a very quaint town. I enjoy it very much with my wife, and we've made some wonderful friends here. We enjoy the town itself because it's so just quaint, and to do anything that would alter that is mind-boggling, in my opinion. Again, the traffic situation has been spoken about, from everybody already, and I only could add to it. It takes us, I don't know how long to get out of our community just to get on Lakeland Avenue. Hopefully, you don't change the zoning. I'm sure that everybody here feels the same way, and I would hate to see the destruction of a beautiful community in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Steve Brienza. On deck is Janet Cole.
Hello, my name is Steve Brienza. I live at 41 Coral Lane in Sayville. It's right off Lakeland Avenue. If I may, some lady spoke about Gray Barn in Amityville, and it was just kind of plopped there. And the developers talked about Gray Barn, Amityville. Well, I used to live near there, not in Amityville, but near there. Gray Barn, Amityville was built on a 4-lane New York State road, Route 110. The developers here won't tell you that. Also, this place is going to be right on Lakeland Avenue, which is a small town road, which I feel is in need of repair. When I called up the town to say about looking at that road, they said, no, it's in good shape. It's not in good shape, Lakeland Avenue. And you can't compare a project that's on a 4-lane state road with a 2-lane town road. The other thing is, they won't tell you that Gray Barn in Amityville went in where there was a trailer park that was just about falling apart, that this is not comparable to what they're talking about putting it in a park type of area, which is what the golf course was. Also, their buildings there are 2-story buildings. They're talking here about 4-story buildings. So there's no comparison between the two. The other thing is, another lady mentioned about moving from Nassau County because it looked like Queens. Well, I moved here about 2 years ago in December of 19 to a retirement community. And that's my friend in Hauppauge who talked about his mom living in a retirement community. If this is so great, put it in Hauppauge. Let the developers put it where they live. I don't think they live around here. So that's why they don't mind putting it here. The other thing is, I read in Newsday about an initiative of Suffolk County to take vacant land and turn it into parks. I don't understand why this can't be considered part of that, because I spoke to a county legislature a couple of weeks ago, a legislator, and he said that the county is against this. Now, I don't know if they have much to say, or it probably comes through the town, but he said they were against it. Other people spoke about many apartments and condos in this town already, and in Sayville. There certainly are. I don't know why we need any more. Now, I came here, as other people have said, for the quaintness of the area, for the ruralness as compared to Nassau County. We don't need a development of this size. I appreciate your time, Supervisor and board members.
Thank you, sir. Janet Cole. And on deck is 17 Brian Kell.
My name's Janet Cowell. I live at 646 Sayville Avenue in Sayville.
I've lived in my house across from the golf course since 1983. I don't live close to downtown Sayville or the Sayville train station, but I've driven down there countless times for shopping and to go into the city on the train, and always appreciate the comfortable feel of our town. When I have out-of-town guests, I am always proud to show them my neighborhood and take them downtown to visit the little shops and restaurants. Sayville still has a small town atmosphere and can even be considered, and I know 4 other people said this, quaint. The apartment complexes that already exist in our town are compatible with that atmosphere. They are mostly garden apartments and fit in well with the surrounding neighborhoods. The proposed Gray Barn apartment complex is so large and out of character for Sayville. 3- and 4-story buildings, some as long as a football field, do not fit in with the surrounding homes. They are not located within walking distance to either downtown or the train station or any other shopping areas at all. Because of this, residents would have to drive wherever they wanted to go, crowding our streets with too many cars. It's already hard for us to turn left onto Lakeland out of 11th Street to get to Sunrise Highway. Sometimes I wait at that stop sign for 5 minutes until the traffic eases up enough for me to get out safely. I can't imagine how it will be with so many more households and cars located in the property across the street from my house. I ask that the board consider the quality of life for the current residents of our town and keep the zoning at single-family homes or at the very least apartment buildings of no more than 2 stories and fewer households. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Brian Kell. On deck is Teresa
Hi.
Ferraro.
Hi, I'm Brian Kell. I live at 646 Sayville Avenue. Thank you for this opportunity to express my concerns about Gray Barn Sayville. The developer's own analysis proves that the project is too big. According to the environmental impact statement, the proposed project would increase Sayville's households by 23% and its population by 16%, all on 3.3% of the land in Sayville. Traffic will increase by 6,400 daily trips, 92% of which will include Lakeland Avenue. The drainage system on the 100-acre site could only accommodate 5 inches of rain, even though the town zoning requires that it accommodate 8 inches. I think the environmental impact statement also minimizes the effect of the proposed development through some misleading information. For example, it says that zoning contiguous to Island Hills ranges in density from 2 to 6 units per acre. Therefore, their proposed 12 units per acre is, quote, not out of character. In fact, it's wholly out of character. The EIS also states the project is in proximity to downtown and public transportation. Neither is within easy walking distance, however. And it also claims that residents may choose to walk to Sayville Plaza. I live near there, and I've never seen anybody do this because you'd have to cross 11 lanes of traffic altogether to do that. The EIS failed to consider many facts that will adversely affect our community, including the project would have the only 4-story buildings in Sayville. Some of those buildings would be longer than a football field. It would place a sewer plant, not just for the new community, but also for downtown Sayville within hundreds of feet of residences. And it would double the number of apartments in Sayville and Bohemia combined. This concentration of transient residents, I think, is problematic. Nationally, on average, tenants rent apartments for about 2.5 years. Homeowners stay much longer, and Sayville is lucky to have many families who have been here for generations and have contributed to the civic and cultural and spiritual life of Sayville. When I mentioned this to a developer's representative, he replied that the average household income of Gray Barn Amityville is higher than the average of household income in Sayville. And we heard the developer himself say that. That response for me captures perfectly how the developer doesn't understand Sayville and frankly doesn't care to. For the developer, it's all about money. For us, it's about community. And I would ask you to please protect this special community by rejecting the zoning change.
Teresa Ferraro. And on deck is John Tafe, number 19.
Good evening. Teresa Ferraro, 6 Timber Ridge Drive, Hop Hog. I am the president and owner of East West Industries. I represent the businesses in this area. East West is an engineering manufacturing firm that produces life support equipment for the military. And yes, we are a business that saves lives. We have been in business for 53 years, all on Long Island. And East West has been a town of Islip business for over 25 years. Over the last 5 years, East West has expanded our facility and created jobs, increasing from 55 to 88 employees. We have been recruiting mechanical engineers locally. However, we have now needed to recruit not only from Long Island, but the tri-state and Northeast areas. These engineers have starting salaries of $70,000. Our 3 recent hires have been from out-of-state schools, and therefore the need for housing was crucial for them to accept a position with East West. Our recent Notre Dame graduate searched for approximately 2 months over this summer to find housing that provided high-end, amenity-rich housing that is scarce in our region. These millennials with good-paying jobs are seeking the type of lifestyle that Graybon can provide. Without this type of housing, they will move out of state, and our community loses as well. When they find these types of housing options that are available, like Graybarn and Sayville, and their disposable incomes will stay here and strengthen the Sayville and Long Island communities. And when they, excuse me, thank you. And when they are ready to purchase homes in that area, they will purchase single-family homes in this area. Therefore, I represent as a growing business here in the town of Islip. I thoroughly support the construction of Graybarn Sayville because it will have exactly the kinds of rental homes that Long Island is in dire need for. Thank you.
Thank you. John Tafe. John Tafe. Next speaker on deck is Mary Spina.
Hello, good evening, Madam Supervisors and members of the board. John Tafe, 91 Island Boulevard, Sayville. I am truly at a loss for words. Nothing that I can say or do will be enough to highlight how important and detrimental this proposal and the possible zone change is to my community, the environment, and myself. With me here today, along with the GIA, is thousands of papers, whether it be letters from residents or factual reports refuting what the DEIS says. Every single piece of paper in the pile was handpicked and took hundreds of hours of our own research to create. I ask that all these papers be recorded for public record. While I could clearly talk all day about all the issues with the DEIS, I don't have enough time, so I included all my letters in the large pile. After reading the DEIS, I believe the applicants and consultants insulted every one of us. In the documentation, there were very serious impacts to the environment, and then in their summary paragraph would state that there would be very little to no impact, a tactic I believe used by the consultants to try and push through the project when there were serious environmental issues. With that, I'm concerned why the consultants would have contradicting and misleading statements. The scientific inaccuracies were astonishing. In the document, the consultants have near feats of nature breaking many scientific laws, all to try and support the applicant's agenda. I believe the consultants didn't think anyone would read the entire document, which would allow them to write whatever they would like. This leads me to my biggest concern, which is the way the applicant treats our community. The applicant has been disengaged with the community. The applicant has not informed the community about what has been going on until they updated their new website, which changed the name to Graybarn Sayville and doesn't have a single detail of the plan, only a link to the draft environmental impact statement. The applicant also had a broken email, which made it nearly impossible to contact them for 2 years. The applicant is still going behind the majority of the community's back and trying to meet with small groups of hand-selected people. Again, what are they trying to hide? If the proposal was so great for the environment and our community, there would be no reason for the applicant to keep the community in the dark. While I know you can't deny the zone change today, when it does come to a vote, I hope you think of every single person in this room, every letter written, every comment raised, and how hard you would fight to stand and save your community. Please do what's right, and thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Chafe. The next speaker, there was a mix-up on the cards. The next speaker is Sherry Kaufman, and Mary Spina is on deck. Or Sean?
No, it's Scott. I'm sorry. I'm going to speak for my wife. So Scott and Sherry Kaufman from 711 Street in Sayville. We're there 35 years.
Okay.
So I just wanted to iterate. I'm sorry. Everyone hear me? Okay. So I just wanted to iterate that I do support almost everything that people have said against the project. One of the things is Steve Hendrickson, one of our earlier speakers, also was very respectful to Reckler. I applaud what he had said, and that was as being a volunteer. So I'm a volunteer with West Sayville Fire, and I am also a member of Community Ambulance. Excuse me. So one of the things I just wanted to make note of is that Community Ambulance runs, I would say, over 5,200 calls a year. On every one of those calls, Suffolk County Police respond with us for our safety. So they do a great job, and I thank them. There's going to be other calls that Suffolk County Police are going to have to respond to there also. So that will take up Suffolk County Police resources. The other thing as an EMT, and talking about a 4-story building, is that if I'm an EMT and I'm going to a call and I got to bring somebody down from a 4-story flight or even 3 stories, I'm going to think about calling the fire department for assistance. So that's going to increase the calls to the West Sayville Fire Department, along with Community Ambulance and along with Suffolk County PD. So that's it. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Mary Spina on deck, number 22. Connie Fury.
Good evening, Town Board of Islip. My name is Mary Spina. I live on 53 Muriel Place, West Sayville. I'm here to address my concerns regarding the proposal made by Reckler Grayburn. There are already traffic jams and slowdowns now on Lakeland Avenue. It's called Lakeland for a reason, toward Montauk Highway. This is especially true during rush hours and during recurring special events. Montauk Highway, going east or west, already has seen high volumes of traffic during the day and at night, particularly during seasonal events and during holiday times. Along with frequent parades and local celebrations, diverted traffic becomes a snarl. There are numerous environmental concerns regarding the preservation of the underground waterway through the property, the undesirable and unknown effects of the proposed septic system, including the increased noise pollution, to name a few. Sunrise Highway traffic is already heavy and congested during strategic points approaching the Oakdale merge and points eastward through Lakeland Avenue. For these reasons, the proposed zoning change will only exacerbate these issues in the surrounding area. It is unforeseeable to think a thriving community will benefit from a convergence of literally thousands more people with thousands more vehicles in such a small area to be beneficial to the hamlet of Sayville and surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary. Connie Fury, and on deck is number 23.
Thank you. Connie Fury. I live at 253 Green Avenue. My husband and I have been proud residents of Sayville and Islip Town for more than 60 years. My husband couldn't make it today. He's handicapped and would not have been able to do this. But part of what he wrote that he sent to an email is that for the beauty of viewing the Great South Bay at the foot of Forster Avenue to enjoying year-round fairs and parades on Main Street, Sayville is such a unique place for all our residents to enjoy and be especially proud of. Regretfully, our special hamlet will be forever altered and damaged if the massive Island Hills project is allowed to proceed. Please reject this short-sighted development. As Joni Mitchell once said, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Don't lose the special quality of living in Sayville. I drive down Lakeland Avenue getting to my job every day, twice a day. Last Monday, I witnessed cars pulling into the side of the road to allow an ambulance to get down the middle of it. Lakeland Avenue, at best, is a two-lane death trap. It's just a matter of time before somebody gets seriously hurt. As regarding the idea of renters, I started off in a renter too. My daughter went to Notre Dame and she found a place to live with, no problem at all. Renters lack the idea of community. They don't volunteer. They're not going to shop in town because they've got this little thing called Amazon. If you want to see something funny, watch all the FedEx trucks locking up Lakeland Avenue like they did last Thursday. It's a narrow street. And when I wrote to the developer and asked the developer how they were going to attack the traffic, the comment that I got was, well, eventually it will be settled. I'm sorry, but when I'm waiting to get to work, I don't want to hear anybody telling me eventually they're going to fix it. It doesn't work that way. You know, it's fine that you really want to make your profit, and I appreciate it. That's the American way. But don't do it at the expense of the people who have lived and paid taxes in Islip Town for 40, 60 years.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Hart, and I live at 17 Amelia Place, West Sayville. I want to focus on the environment. My family and I have experienced firsthand how pollution has affected Long Island. My family has been in the seafood industry for over 60 years, and my sister and I now run our father's oyster hatchery in West Sayville. The trend is simple. Overdevelopment on Long Island equals depletion of life in our bays. The common denominator is excessive nitrogen production. Nitrogen promotes algae growth, so when there's excessive nitrogen, there's excessive algae, which disturbs the balance in the ecosystem and harms sea life, and in turn, it harms us. Now, the excessive nitrogen is coming from excessive human activity, most notably our fertilizers and plumbing. So we are creating and perpetuating the cycle that is destroying our health and our economy. We must be mindful of the amount of pollution that we are putting out. Sewage treatment plants are not always a solve-all to addressing water pollution due to the high water table in our town, as identified by the 2 ponds on Island Hills property. Leaching fluids will not function properly, and the pollutants will seep into the bay still. This year has been the lowest year in oyster production for our hatchery that we have ever seen. If we have any hope of saving our bays and Long Island's famous seafood industry, we must stop overdeveloping on our already overpolluted island. It is shown in the lack of parking in the very design of the complex, and it is shown in the abundance of pollution in our water. Adding this development to our environment just simply does not make sense, and we cannot afford to add this stress on our home. Please do not sell our souls. I have some time left, and I didn't write this down, but I'm hearing the thing with millennials and renting, and I'm living with my dad right now because I can't afford anywhere to go. I certainly would not be able to afford $2,500 in this apartment complex. And the problem is that the renting industry is the reason why we're all poor. We all know how capitalism works. We need property. We need to buy homes. So yeah, let's vote. And honestly, like, that's bigger than all. It's bigger than Islip. It's a big problem in our country. But the environment is something that you guys can make a decision on. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Next speaker, William Hart. On deck is number 25.
Hi, my name is Billy Hart. I'm 136 Atlantic Avenue, and that was my daughter. We all know the obvious disadvantages to building Gray Barn. You know, the traffic, the parking, the police, the fire. Our community already has numerous apartments, and we really don't have a need for more. But my concern is about the environment. I want to talk about Greens Creek. Greens Creek runs directly underneath Island Hills. There's 2 ponds on Island Hills, which are very shallow. Anything that they do in a sewage treatment plant there is going to be directly affected by those ponds, and it's going to leach into Great South Bay. One of the things that I don't understand about this is that Islip Town, you people, finance a hatchery in Islip, in East Islip. You have spent millions and millions of dollars over 30 years raising clams, oysters, and now you're raising a new crop, kelp, all for the reason to eliminate the nitrogen problems in our bay. I just don't understand how you could approve something like this that's going to add nitrogen to the bay while you're trying to combat it on the other end. It just doesn't make any sense to me. These are basically the reasons why I don't think you should change the reckless zoning. I think Gray Barn shouldn't be built, and we need single-family homes or open spaces. I don't want to see Recla turn around and say, let's build 600 apartments, let's build 200 apartments, let's build single-family homes or leave it empty. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Grace Pagano, and on deck is 26.
This is fine. Hi, my name is Grace Papano. I have lived in Sayville for 44 years. Hard to believe. I don't have facts and figures for you. I have no charts and graphs. Sayville is my little town. It's these people's little town. It's our heart. We've lived here, we've worked here. I've worked in 6 or 7 different community projects. I'm in the Civic Association, the Chamber of Commerce, Sayville Village Improvement Society. I worked at Having Friends In, the Common Ground. We put our life here. Wherever I go, even Manhattan, I've been upstate, and people say, where are you from? I'm from Sayville. And they, oh, I love Sayville. I love to go there because it's quiet, it's nice, it's sweet, it smells good. I'm afraid, that man made me frightened of that. The people who came before us put the zoning laws into place for a reason, to keep our little town. Now it's in your hands. This has been going on for 5 years. How about no? No. Thank you.
Richard?
Richard Casabianca, yes, hi. Good evening, members of the board, everyone else who's here. I am Richard Casabianca. I live in Hampton Bays. Living in Hampton Bays means I'm not going to comment on any of the specifics of this project. What I do want to do, however, is convey that we had an experience with these gentlemen. Mother's family settled Hampton Bays, after the Shinnecock, we were next. And I have a huge investment in its history, its environment, the economy and all alike. I want things to work. And these guys came along, and I found out about it in an article in Suffolk Life, because at the time, for some reason, I don't know, our government didn't tell the people. And we were enraged. And we had so many of these exact same concerns. I'm having such a wonderful deja vu night here. I love this. Everyone's got, stuff on their mind, and they want their concerns and their considerations addressed. And what I want to say is that our experience was that they did, okay? Scale, height, mass, units, design, environment, nitrogen. What else did you do that I wanted you to do? Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, they started out with wanting to tear down the Canoe Place Inn for Christ's sake, you know. And I wasn't just like, no, but more like, hell no, you know. And anyway, that became this huge conversation, which is what the PDD is. It's a big conversation. It's an invitation to design rather than to simply go with whatever the default zoning is, which may not be a bad thing. But a design process is something that I think is worth getting into. And by all means, I remember DEIS and all these other acronyms and things and stuff. Like, you know, one in education. Stay in the conversation, contribute. Every concern, everything matters. Put down everything. I mean, like, I wanted green shutters, you know, on the Canoe Place Inn. You know, everything. And you know, let these people know that everything that they say is going to be addressed. Okay. And what I want to say is that these two are pretty good at listening, believe it or not. Okay. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Barbara Fitzpatrick. And again, please, no shouting. And on deck is number 28.
Thank you very much. My name is Barbara Fitzpatrick. I live in Sayville, 286 Handsome Avenue. And I just want to say to Reckler, the applicant, that Sayville is not desperate for any kind of housing like that, but we are desperate to save our Sayville-ness. And I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Dennis Wren. And on deck is Christine.
Hello. For a decision this big for the proposed zone change, I would expect that each and every board member has already visited the site and the immediate area around the golf course. What I'd like to do is ask each board member to take a second and visualize this in the neighborhood. The streets, 11th Street, Cary, Chester, Durham, Oakdale, Bohemia Road, just to name a few. Picture the single-family houses and the two-family houses at the most, right? They go up 35 feet. I heard the regular thing is a minimum of 55 feet, and that's probably lowballing it. The multiple houses that are most 2 stories in the neighborhood, the multiple buildings being proposed that are 4 stories with a large Dutch barn roof. If you could visualize these 4 extremely large buildings with the Dutch barn going over, which is more, probably another floor and a half or 2 floors, it's going to be a 6-story building in an area that's zoned for single and 2-family houses. These buildings will be overshadowing and darkening the neighborhood of the single and 2-family houses. I really believe, if you know this, and that this is not the neighborhood for these buildings to be built in. Based on all the issues and a negative impact in the zoning changes will have on this current single and 2-family housing neighborhood that have been stated by the previous neighbors who have spoken tonight, I would hope that the board votes this zoning change down. Thank you. Dennis Reedy, Sayville.
Thank you, sir. Christine. And on deck is Kathleen. Number 30 on deck.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Christine Sarney. I live at 89 Manton Street in Sayville. Also the president of the Greater Sayville Civic Association. I come here tonight to speak to you about this zoning change and tell you why so many people are against it. The representatives from Reckler started with a list of things that they've heard from the community, and they heard correctly, and I like to reiterate some of those things. First, zoning matters. It absolutely matters. And we all know it matters if we've ever gone to do some construction on our own homes and you're sent back by town to eliminate a foot or inches sometimes because your plan didn't fit into the zoning that your house fits in. These buildings do not anywhere fit in the current zoning of where this development is being proposed. This is an increase of 25% of the number of people in our community. What that does to our infrastructure, our taxes, our emergency services. You've heard over and over and over again, it's very taxing, it's very scary to us, and it doesn't stay in the in what we believe is the fabric of our community. We have you have as a town, and we have as our smaller hamlet in that town, committed ourselves to preserving our environment and our bay. We have 26 civic associations in Sayville alone, many of them dedicated to things like we heard, the oyster hatchery, clams, kelp, cleaning our bay waters. And because of that, we have dedicated ourselves to cleaning our creeks, native plantings, and anything that will filter the groundwater that goes into our bay to bring back the bay as it should be after it had been ignored for so many years. But there's one thing I do really want to address as well, and it's something that the RECLA representative said at the very beginning, and he spoke about who the renters are and why we're against renters. And that is really important because he rattled off a bunch of properties that he owns, and then a bunch of the businesses that work there. And then when he spoke about who rents at Gray Barn in Amityville, he rattled off a bunch of their jobs. And it was really interesting to me that not one of the list of the jobs, teacher, fireman, cop, executive, seemed to line up with the properties and the businesses that he rents to. So it doesn't seem like one is really helping the other. I also say, as a representative of the Civic, I represent the homeowners because I have lived in Sayville for 20 years and I have not once met a renter in Sayville. They don't become part of the fabric of our community. That doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they are looking to get elsewhere. They don't necessarily engage themselves. I'd like to do a little math before I go. $70,000 a year is an important number, and I'm not going to question their data. I believe them, $70,000 a year. But why is that number so important? They say that your rent should be 30%. I'm going to finish. Should be 30% of your income. Well, 30% of your income at $70,000 a year is $6,000 a month, which will be about $2,000 a month, which is less than what
Okay,
we're
you're
planning.
going to have to wrap up. Thank you.
Well, I will just say at the end of 5 years, a renter would have put $120,000 into their pocket and have nothing to buy a house.
Thank
This
you.
does not lead to homeownership.
Thank you. Kathleen Cutrone on deck is number 31. Everyone's been so great about lining up, so I thank you for that.
My name's Kathleen Cutrone. I'm at 93 Garfield Avenue, Sayville. I am a former member of the Greater Islip Association. I'm a current member of the Greater Sayville Civic. However, I'm here to speak as a resident of the community. So we've had lots of discussions regarding this monstrosity that wants to land in Sayville. And as you can see by the room and what everybody is saying, it's not wanted. We would much rather have either the 84 homes, or if you even want to double that, go for it. That'd be great. Right across the street are multi-million-dollar homes. How do you think they feel about this apartment complex? Because that's what it is, a plain old apartment complex going up right across from their homes. I do have a couple of comments that I'd like to make regarding, where am I now? Regarding the Nature's Bounty Company, as they said, is one of their renters. I work for the Nature's Bounty Company. I'm not familiar with any buildings that we rent from you. So if you could let me know what that is, I'd love to know, because I manage my own building. So I also, putting it out there, I worked for you guys 20 years ago. I didn't stay long, not my tribe. So, but again, you know, in Newsday and all these other papers, article after article, everybody is fighting development. It's just gotten completely out of control. I mean, can't we just build homes that people want to live in and people want to invest in their community and get to know their neighbors and stay there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I mean, to stay on Long Island, first of all, my company has to outsource. And secondly, they can't find talent on Long Island because nobody wants to come to Long Island because it is so expensive. So again, my Nature's Bounty Company, which was just recently purchased by Nestle, they now have an office in New Jersey, because Jersey's got a big hub for all this talent that Long Island has now lost. So with that being said, there's lots of little notes I have here. At one of our meetings, the Recklers did say, if you can't afford the apartment, get a roommate. Well, I'm 20 years divorced. I'm not about to get a roommate at this stage of my life. Not going to happen. So I stand here before you saying, we don't want this. It's really plain and simple. We can talk all about, the ecology and the nitrogen and all that jazz. It all adds up to not a good thing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. David Mantovani. On deck is 32.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Mantovani. I live at 672 Bohemia Parkway, directly across the street from the proposed Gray Barn site. First, I would like to say that the Recklers, when purchasing the Island Hills Golf Course, knew exactly what they were getting, and that was 114 acres of AAA zone land, on which they currently could build roughly 100 homes, give or take. I am vehemently opposed to this bill in any way, shape, or form, as it would negatively impact the face of our community forever. I would also like to remind all of those voting on this change that the current zone laws were put in place to protect us, the residents, against bills exactly like what's being proposed here. Not the family looking to put a carport, a second shed, or a fence up, but to protect us from projects exactly like Gray Barn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Susan Mantovani. And on deck, Pastor Jeff, number 33.
Hello, Susan Mantovani, 672 Bohemia Parkway in Sayville. I've been a resident for 26 years of this town. I am one of the directors of the not-for-profit Greater Islip Association. This group, as town residents, oppose the proposed zone change from AAA to PDD. We request that the zone change application by R Squared be denied and that the 114-acre former Island Hills Golf Course area to remain AAA zoning, as it was recommended by Suffolk County's own corridor report. If the land must be developed, keep it at its present zoning that would allow for 80 to 100 single-family homes to be constructed. A build of this magnitude in this area does not fit into the surrounding neighborhood at all. It also does not follow any smart growth plans. It is not a walkable community, nor is it a transit-oriented community. It will have a negative impact on the quality of life both the Sayville residents and the adjoining town residents have now. Over the past 4 years, our group has held many large protests, both in front of the Island Hills Golf Course and in front of the town of Islip buildings. We have had multiple news organizations covering us both in print and on television. We've written numerous letters to both the town board and planning department. We created a not-for-profit 501c4 organization. We have held very successful fundraisers. We have been anything but quiet about what we don't want for this town, and that is Sayville Gray Barn. Today, I will submit to the town board our opposition and media timeline from 2017 to present, along with any additional information that supports our opposition to this proposed project. I ask that every piece of information be placed on record. We have the support of many community members, the Connecticut School District, and the Greater Sayville Civic Association. We have been at multiple meetings with the Recklers and/or their liaisons. We have been verbally told there's no plan B because we've never been turned down before, or that they are not in the business of building single-family homes. Couple those simple responses along with the fact that Recklers already advertising their Gray Barn Sayville indicates that the developer thinks that this is a done deal and is no way listening to what the residents have to say, and that is a very simple no zone change. The Greater Islip Association created a supermajority petition and secured a total of 115 property owner signatures from out of 194 properties that are within 100 feet of Island Hills. We have tripled the amount of signatures needed to successfully petition for a supermajority vote. Those supermajority petition documents were personally handed to you, the Town of Islip Town Board at your September 14th meeting, and we presently wait for the response, which we hope to have soon. As you know, zoning laws are in place to protect the residents. Here you have residents who are highly vocal in opposition. Just no zone change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Jeff, on deck number 34.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Pastor Jeff Eichenlaub, 1101 Lakeland Avenue. I'm a pastor, so I'm going to read some quick notes. The rumor that people can talk a lot is true, so we'll keep this brief. So, my name is Jeff. I'm executive pastor of True North Community Church and a director of a local community service nonprofit called Serve All New York. Serve All New York works across Long Island and quite deeply here in the town of Islip, serving children and families in need on a number of levels. And our church has opened the door to the community, serving families on a number of levels every day. The reason I'm here is because we love our community. We love the people that live here. We love those that we serve, and we work diligently to be a blessing to it. That being said, and to be very clear, I'm not here to offer a position on this initiative. There are stakeholders from all sides that are much more knowledgeable than myself that can address all the various aspects and variables of the project. My appeal, as someone who loves this community, and what I'm humbly and respectfully proposing, is for all stakeholders in this process to objectively weigh the options, the impacts to the community, the challenges, and the benefits of this initiative. It's one thing to simply express our thoughts and opinions, but it's quite another to truly listen to each other. My hope, and more importantly, my prayers, is that we can walk through this process in a spirit of civility, treating each other with respect, communicating objectively, listening, and learning from all sides, and collaboratively working towards resolution. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Pastor. Ken Weeks, and on deck is number 35, Kathy Weber.
My name is Ken Weeks, 4419 Wilshire Lane, Oakdale, New York. As you all know me, I'm the ex-chief building inspector and ex-director of building and housing for the town of Islip. You're probably asking why I'm here tonight. To give you a little more history that you guys don't know about. I was born and raised in Sable. My father was born in the house alongside of the house that I grew up in. My father today is 90 years old, still living in the house that I grew up in. As a kid, my first job was a newspaper route that included Willard Avenue, Roosevelt Avenue, Lakeland Avenue, up to where this complex is about to be built or proposed. My second job was at the gas station on the corner of Depot Street and Railroad Avenue in Sable, which, as you guys know, would be the extension of Lakeland Avenue south of the tracks. I also drove taxi from the airport when I had a taxi stand, and most of my passengers were the summer tourists heading down to the ferry boats. I am probably almost an expert on Lakeland Avenue, the traffic that's there, every crack in that sidewalk, every pebble in the road. I've looked at the traffic thing, which I had several pages I was going to quote tonight, but unfortunately I can't see the pages to give you the page numbers. But one of the biggest things in here that affected the most were the proposed changes to Lakeland Avenue that are supposed to make this a more safer travel way for this development. In my opinion, the proposed changes do not work. Chester Road is one of the roads that leads off Lakeland Avenue. And years ago, I'm going to say guess 10, it was probably more like 15. After many complaints to the community, it was made to have it was next to impossible to make a left-hand turn heading north on Lakeland from Chester Road. So somebody went in there and drew a grid box onto the pavement, and it was supposed to make the turns easier. The problem with the grid box is that once you put the grid box in, there's no enforcement there keeping cars off the grid box. People didn't know what it was, and they had gridlock anyway. The proposed changes in the traffic study is not going to cure that problem. The extension of the roadway going south on Lakeland into a double lane headed south with the turn lane going into this complex is going to create a dragway effect. It is not going to fix the problem of the traffic on Lakeland Avenue. This project will add roughly 2,600 cars to Lakeland, which I feel is an underestimate. It's more like 3,000 cars. The roadway is not designed for it. This project does not fit Sayville. It does not match the community of Sayville. It does not match the surrounding houses of Sayville. This project brings no benefit to Sayville whatsoever. My question to this board is, before you make a decision on this, have you visited the neighborhood itself? Because I offered to you a guided tour of the community of Sayville, so you can see the houses that are there and the traffic that exists during rush hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks. Kathy Weber, and on deck number 36.
Hi, my name is Kathy Weber, and I'm a little nervous, so just give me a second here. I heard Mr. Reckler say something about quaint and Gray Barn and whatnot, and I can tell you firsthand, I live on 428 Bohemia Parkway. Again, my name is Kathy Weber. There's nothing quaint about dumping 27 3- and 4-story buildings in the middle of our neighborhood. There just isn't. And if you want to address a real housing issue, how about we think about maybe 2-bedroom, 2-bath homes that fits your first-time home buyer, that fits your empty nester, and maybe some parks where kids, young families can play and the grandparents can take the grandchildren. Something like that. That seems to be something that everybody would not be objectable to. These apartments just don't fit the character of our town. And lastly, these millennials that you speak about, I am the mother of 3 of them. All 3 of them have expressly said to me and my husband that they don't want to live in an apartment or in an apartment complex with a Starbucks and gyms and things like that. They want to live in a forever home like the one that they grew up in. So I hope that you take everything that the community has to say and vote no to this zone change. Not opposed to housing, but the scale of this is just too big for our town. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Lisa Fiorante, on deck number 37.
Hi, my name is Lisa Fioravanti. I live at 692 Bohemia Parkway that directly faces this proposed apartment complex. I feel that the surrounding streets, including mine, aren't fit for this increased traffic. And as it is now, you cannot fit 2 cars going north or south down my street or surrounding streets, east or west. There is so much open spaces along Sunrise Highway going east. Why pick our area that directly impacts us, which a lot of us have grown up in the area and also raised our children and grandchildren here for that small town and safety and good schools, which I am one of those people. My parents moved from the city when I was younger to give us that open space and that country and suburban feel and make a better life for us since they wanted a change from that city life. This project will destroy that and the town of Sayville and the surrounding areas. Okay. I noticed that the apartments that are new around this part of Long Island and in open areas are not in the middle of an established neighborhood, which is zoned for 84 single-family homes, which could be for millennials and for 55 and over who are looking to buy, not rent, and stay in the area. There will also be a negative environmental effect. We have wildlife that live in the golf course. Where will they go? This project will affect my property in a negative way as the soil, the noise, the traffic, which could be hazardous to my area, and also the sewage system and the water pressure. I live next door to a sump, so all the rainwater goes in this sump, and it's pretty much as it is. Also, I want to address the walking. They stated that they're going to build a walking path open to the public, which is close to my house on Bohemia Parkway. This project will be an eyesore to me and decrease my home value. And I do not feel comfortable with this idea as it if the parking lot is full on the complex, people will start to park on my street, and it will be difficult to get in and out of my driveway. And my family and friends that want to visit will have nowhere to park. My quiet street will become like a busy city street, which is not acceptable. My last thought statement is,
Thank you, Lisa. Next speaker, Eileen Piffard, and on deck, number 38.
Good evening. My name is Aileen Piffard. I moved to Sayville in 1972 as a young woman. I live on 126 Edwards Avenue. My husband owned a fish business.
If you could just speak closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
My husband owned a fish business on Montauk Highway in Sayville for over 30 years. And he was one of the beginning people who instigated the Summerfest and also the festival down at the Marine Museum. So we've been heavily involved in the community for a long, long time. Time inevitably brings change, but the magnitude of this proposed Gray Barn project will forever destroy the character of our neighborhood, which is now a wonderful, vibrant community. The proposal begs the question of why we have zoning restrictions at all, when an uninterested, non-local party seeks to change 114 acres of open land zoned for large single-family lots to a PPD designation that has not been seen before in this area. That would be a dangerous precedent to set in our zoning patterns and totally out of character for the area. I wanted to briefly address two areas of the DEIS. First, the impact on schools. The Connecticut schools mentioned in the DEIS would require huge changes to the busing schedule, which a previous speaker addressed. In addition, this DEIS seems to dictate to the school board that they can have staggered starting times at the elementary schools, and that's completely unacceptable. The other thing I wanted to address in the DEIS was the traffic impact. Lakeland Avenue, as has been mentioned many times before, is the responsibility of the town of Islip. Upgrades needed for this project would add to our tax burden. The street is largely residential, not as stated in the DEIS. The statement says that it's mostly commercial, but in the area of the proposal, it is mostly actually single-family homes, and traffic congestion already chokes the area. Chester Road is a hilly street, not flat, as stated in the DEIS. And also, we have to consider the effect of all this traffic on the Oakdale merge, which has been studied heavily, but not taking into consideration the additional cars.
Thank you, Eileen. Gina Barrett, and on deck is number 39.
Good evening. I've been a Town of Islip resident for 12 years and live at 652 Bohemia Parkway, directly across the street from the zone change location. I'm going to take the opportunity to discuss my opposition to the zone change. A residential community made up of single-family 1- and 2-level houses does not have the ability to align itself with the anticipated expansion project of this size. The community is not equipped for this and/or cannot sustain and build. The property's current zoning would allow for single-family houses, which would be better met the community's needs, especially as the world shifts towards social distancing standards. When your residents purchase homes in the neighborhood, the expectations was that the current zoning would stay in effect and not interrupt everyday lives. And if something like this would come up, that the board that we voted for would be there and stand with the community. I have a son in Boston. I have a son in Boston Elementary and have the same concerns as the school district had on the reply letter to Reckler requesting the school adjust the arrival and departures of students to help the potential traffic congestion. If there is a minimal impact to the number of students that will be entering the local elementary, then why would there be any reason for the school to make adjustments to support RECLA's agenda? The school district is supposed to support what is best for the interests of the students and not the developer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gina. Ellen Pers. Linda, number 40 on deck.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Ellen Pers, and I live at 952 Chester Road in Sayville. And I would like to talk to you about Chester Road. I don't know if you're familiar with Chester Road, but it abuts the golf course. You know, my backyard is the golf course, and it also runs parallel to Lakeland Avenue. So Chester Road's going to be affected in a multitude of ways. It's not a very wide road. As someone said before, you can't have two cars pass because it's not a very wide street. Now, many drivers use Chester Road to avoid traffic on Lakeland Avenue, to avoid the traffic lights, to avoid the traffic. So they come down Chester Road. Google Maps, in fact, directs drivers down Chester to get to the soccer fields at the end of the road. I know a study was done about the number of cars that come down the street, but I don't have that information. So what I did today, the other day, I just looked out my front door for about a minute. And in that minute, 7 cars passed down the road within 60 seconds. That would mean that approximately 40 cars would pass down in a 1-hour period of time. I'll let you do the math to figure out how many cars come down that street during the day. This was done, I looked at this at 9 o'clock in the morning when children were getting on their school buses. In fact, the traffic is so bad on Chester Road that the buses stop at the children's homes. There are no bus stops. There are no sidewalks on the streets. You don't see kids riding their bicycles on Chester Road because it's just not safe enough because of all of the cars that come down the street. There are times when several cars will pass, before I can even get out of my driveway. Now, to turn north onto Lakeland Avenue from Chester Road can be precarious at times. I can only see it getting worse if Graybarn is built. Another concern is if RECLA has, and I would like to know if RECLA has any plans to change the access to Chester Road. Will there be an outlet to or from Graybarn onto Chester? Now, if you allow Graybarn to be built, does the town have any plans on how to deal with the overflow traffic on Chester that will turn it into a main street? Will it become a one-way street? Will it become a private road? This has to be taken into consideration. Those of us who bought the homes on Chester Road didn't buy a house on a main road. We didn't anticipate, oh no, really?
Really?
Can I just end it?
Thank you, Linda Tyra. And whatever comments you didn't finish, please, they can be submitted and we will see them.
Hello, can I take this?
And on deck is 41. Go ahead, Linda.
Am I able to put this down so they can hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Linda Tyra. I'm representing 2 households. My parents' household, which is 44 St. John Street, which is directly across from the Island Hills Golf Course, and also mine, which is 91 Green Avenue, which is right in Sayville Town. I grew up in Sayville. My grandfather had that house built on St. John Street in '64. There was a representative from RECLA or a plant from RECLA stating that people of a certain age do not want to own homes anymore, and they're disabled or can't afford to live in their homes. My mother is half disabled. She loves her home. She wants to stay in her home. She doesn't feel like it's a burden to be in her home and pass it on to me. I have my own home, which is 2 minutes from them. I grew up in this town. I have a really big community of people who live in this town who do not want to see a 4-story building across the street from them when they're still living in their homes. My parents taught me certain values. I have my own house. I rent it. I have a 2-family house that has renters. It's legal. I have people who rent from me and who would love to own a home in Sayville. Where are the extra homes for them? This would provide extra homes for them if it was zoned correctly and have homes for them to live. I've had several people for 30 years that I've rented my home stay in Sayville, buying homes. They're saying that is not possible. It is possible. Give us more homes then. Give these kids open spaces that they don't have. And they go into town. I see them all the time, go past my house. These kids have no place to play. They have no extracurricular activities for them. Make this as a park for them, where they can go, an open space. Not to mention all the stuff that is environmentally impacting all the grass that's there. Reckler has not maintained. For 5 years, we've had to stare at this dilapidated area that has not been maintained in 5 years. They have not talked to us, who live directly across from this building that's being proposed. They don't communicate with the community at all. We're 100 feet from it. We're looking directly at it. First letter I've gotten from them is the one to be here today. No communication at all. They don't want to help us. They want to destroy us. What about the people who have lived in this community? I'm 3rd generation. We want to stay here. We don't want apartments. We want homes. It's not fair to the community that's around them to put up a city in front of them. They've been here forever. They don't want to leave.
Thank you, Linda. Next speaker, Melissa Brogan, and on deck is 42.
Sorry, I'm short. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm clear. Okay.
I can relate.
Oh, my clock has started. Oh, all right. Hi, my name is Melissa Elliott Brogan, and I live at 963 Chester Road in Sayville, which is about 100 feet from the Island Hills property. I own a business in West Sayville. I volunteer in our schools, and I'm one of the 3 women who admin the infamous Sayville Moms page on Facebook. We have about 4,500 people. That's a lot of voters. I'm so disappointed that we are here at this point entertaining the Gray Barn proposal. I struggle to understand how one decision to purchase property can be conveniently manipulated to go from one type to another. Was this property purchased with honest intention? Was there even an attempt to perform proper assessments and analytics as to what placing single-family housing on this property would yield before attempting to create this apartment complex under false pretense? I don't understand why the Town of Islip Board isn't listening to the people that they were elected to support. I don't feel represented, but tonight I will be heard. I am concerned with the pollution and air quality and soil quality that building these structures will do to our environment in general, and specifically being in such close proximity to my home. My neighbor passed away of cancer, and previous owner of my home died of sudden cardiac death. I have cardiac issues, autoimmune disorder, asthma. My daughter is a type 1 diabetic, and my husband is a World Trade Center first responder who has had cancer. People on my block are sick. What will become of our environment when there is documentation showing the toxicity of the soil? Why are you not testing the soil around the golf course and protecting people? Is there going to be a study into our soil, my property, and air being directly across the street? How can we measure the impact of what is proposed with no control, no knowledge, and forgive me, no care to? What will 1,300 more vehicles with emissions do to that area? What about light pollution? What about garbage, vermin, waste, and bugs? It seems like this is a David and Goliath situation at this point, and we are being looked at like a bunch of snobs. I can say for one, my family chose this area. We are not a legacy family. We chose here for the schools, the small town feel, the connections, and the camaraderie that is afforded in our towns. Chester Road is a speedway. You can't possibly spend 15 minutes on my block at work times without seeing someone speeding down as a cut through. My daughter has never been able to ride her bike on our block, and when my husband and I walk at night, I fear for my life of being hit. I don't want to even fathom what adding another 1,300 cars would do to the area. That traffic is insurmountable during specific times of the day on Chester, Lakeland, and on Sunrise Highway. The other part, what was brought up earlier, what young professionals, do you know, have that kind of money to spend on rent with having school loans? And due to the pandemic, everyone's working from home. And guess what? Rent is open in Manhattan. Call a realtor. There's plenty of places in Manhattan they could live instead of Seville. All I ask is that some of these concerns you take into account when deciding the fate of many. We've entrusted you all to represent us. I've entrusted most of you to represent me. I hope you take that as serious as it was meant to when we all voted and hear us today.
Thank you, Melissa. And Melissa, we are listening. Edward Hayden Real,
Very good. Good afternoon.
and on deck is 43.
And thank you all for your time.
Edward, if you wouldn't mind coming closer to the microphone, please,
Certainly.
and your address, if you wouldn't mind.
I live at 461 Bohemia Parkway, about a block away from the golf course. And I think the young lady in front of me sold basically my lightning. The question
You
is,
wrote it for her. We knew. We could tell.
The question is, here, my friends and neighbors are disagreeing with this zone change that is going to destroy the neighborhood that we live in. There's no doubt about that. So all I ask is please reconsider the zoning change. Think of the community. We voted for you to represent us. Here we are. Please represent us and help us keep the neighborhood as it is and not change it dramatically the way the project will definitely do, as all these people in front of me and behind me will tell you all the different projects that are going to affect the neighborhood that we live in and love in and want to stay in, and hopefully that we'll be able to. So please reconsider the zoning change, and we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Edward Brogan, and on deck is 44.
Yes, my name's Ed Brogan. That was my wife who just spoke before. I'm very proud of her. I live at 963 Chester, probably within 100 feet or so of the border of the golf course. Most of what I was going to say has been said, and you asked if that had happened, that I didn't reiterate everything.
Thank you.
But just the main thing is the health worries of all, and the contamination that I did start to read in the report is concerning. Also, the idea of the roads, and everybody went through it very thoroughly. Roads that have built in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, when each single house had one car maybe, and now we're dealing with so much more. Even if the property was developed with many homes, we would still see a difficult increase in traffic. But it just, to me, it's just so ludicrous to put 28 buildings that are housing 1,600 different apartments or so. So I would ask that you vote down any sort of zone change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Artie Cipoletti on deck is number 45.
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm here in support of the project. Popular or unpopular, it is what it is. I also would like to say that the experts that they have are using science. They're not doing things because they think this is the way it is. They're using science based on a parking
If you could
complexes.
just speak closer into the microphone and your address.
My address is 27 True Harbor Way, West Islip. My office is also in Islip. I have 140 employees that live in the town of Islip. Besides.
Excuse me, please. Let the speaker have the courtesy of you listening.
The experts that they have here tonight are doing everything that they can to produce the science that's actual, and it's not guesswork. I've been on projects that Mr. Voorhees has done before. I've heard him speak before. I've seen the transformation in Patchogue. I've seen the transformation going on at the Ronkonkoma Hub, and I was involved with the Gray Barn project. So everybody likes to see things the way they were, and I don't disagree with that. My mom lives on Lincoln Avenue in Sayville. She doesn't like the project. I'm not arguing that Sayville is a beautiful area, but I do think that there is time for change. And I think that the project that they're proposing is a different quality than what people are expecting. They're attracting a higher end renter that we need in the area to help sustain the neighborhood. You don't have to agree with me. I didn't agree with you, and I'm not arguing that, but I encourage you to support it. I know the character of these two gentlemen behind me. They don't even know who I am, but I know the work that they've done. I know the projects they do, and I know they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to listen to the people's comments. And as long as the comments that they're giving are reasonable, and they can listen in a forum that it works back and forth, you're going to get what you want out of this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Helen Erdman. Really? Come on, guys.
Hi, good evening.
Helen Erdman, and on deck is 46.
Yes, hi, good evening,
Just
Supervisor.
wait for things to quiet down so we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Supervisor and Town Board. My name is Helen Erdman. I live on Chester Road, along with many of my other neighbors. Many of them couldn't be here tonight. I'm sure all of us know, at least a dozen people who said, please tell me what happened because I can't make it tonight. 5 o'clock is a hard time for young people with families and children and people coming home from work. But those of us that are here, many things have been said already. What I would, and I didn't prepare anything anyway, what I wanted to tell you was that I tried to read this on the desktop computer at home. It was difficult. There's pictures. You can't really get a sense of it. So I went to the library, Sayville Library, and I asked them to produce it for me. They had trouble finding it. They didn't know what I was talking about. I was clearly the first person to ask for it. But my neighbor and I went up there. We took the 2 big binders in our new library, and we found a table, and we opened them up, and we were overwhelmed. So we picked a topic that we could understand, and it was the traffic one, and everyone's talked about it. But what I just want to say is, I'm looking at the picture of it, and I see parking spaces, and I think lights, 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 lights everywhere. All these parking spaces are around the building. There's this pretty pond in the middle, but all of us who live around it are going to look at parking spaces, tall buildings, and we're going to see lights. When I go home tonight, I better look at the sky and see the stars, because I'm not going to see them again when I see 114 acres with tall street lights lit every single night. This, and like I said, everything else has been said. One piece I looked at was lot number 1 was the first one to be built, and it said it had 168 units, and only 30 cars were going to enter and exit, 30 or 37 in the AM. And this gentleman ahead of me said, this is the science, this is the science. And I'm thinking, 99 cars leave Chester Road every morning, but only 30 are going to leave lot number 1 with 168 units in the morning. That's not science. So please read those 2 big binders, because you want us to read them so that we can understand this project. Yes, they're big, and there's papers in there that fill a table. Go look at them. Don't just read it on this computer, and understand the impact on this community. These are people that support Sayville, and the people coming in that are going to be a tenant are not. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Anna Agnes, on deck, number 47.
Hello, my name is Anna Agnes. I'm at 162 Connecticut Drive in Oakdale. And first, just the guy before said that this is like the transformation of Patchogue, and that's not possible. You can't even have more restaurants on Main Street in Sayville because there's no sewers, so this is really not comparable to that. But anyway, I was born in 1996. I'll be 25 next week, so I'm on the cusp between millennial and Gen Z. And with all the talk about keeping young people around, the young people that I know at least, they want to save up their money and use it to buy a house, and would rather spend their money on a mortgage to invest in their home and their community, and not waste their money on temporary expensive rental units like Gray Barn. So, and I do have other friends that want to live in expensive apartments, but they live in New York City and Manhattan, and Sayville is for sure not Manhattan, and no one wants it to be. I'm also worried that if you allow for this zone change, then what happens next? And where does it stop? Because I am in Connecticut Drive's in Idle Hour right down the street from Dowling College. We have our own problems there. So if you allow this zone change, who's to say that Dowling College property won't be next? And you've heard tons of reasons from my neighbors here as to why this project is not good. It's not good for current residents and small businesses of Sayville. It's not good for the Connecticut Central School District, which I'm a graduate of. And it's not good for anyone in the area commuting to school or work. And it's definitely not good for the environment. So it has to leave you wondering, who is this good for? Obviously the developers, Reckler, that makes sense. Maybe for you guys also, considering they've given plenty of political contributions in the last few years to the ISLIP Republican Committee and a few of you sitting up there. So yeah, thank you. Maybe for once, please listen to your constituents and deny this zone change. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis O'Brien. On deck is Chris Record.
Good evening, town council members, town supervisor, my friends, neighbors, and yes, let me extend a welcome to our visitors from the Builders Association and the Reckless. Interesting. My name is Francis O'Brien. I reside at 684 Bohemian Parkway in Sayville. He's located right across the street from the 12th green of the Island Hills Golf Course for the past 24 years. While I've done it, we've raised 3 children. We've been very involved in our community. Myself, I am a veteran. I have served the community as a Cub Master, Scout Master. My wife has taught in the Connecticut public school system. And I must say, this is the first time I'm meeting anybody from the Reckler Equity Company or the Recklers themselves. But yet we're supposed to have all these discussions. Now, the statements made tonight by the Recklers are many. The one I want to focus on first is the statement that we will only be adding 1 student for every 10 units built in this complex. What they fail to mention is what it will take out of our community if this proposal is approved. The Amityville Great Barn project took dozens of families out of that community. As a teacher in the Amityville School District, I witnessed this firsthand as I lost several of my students upset as their education was interrupted by this building project. Yes, they lived in a trailer park. I remember one in particular, Ashley. She was first generation American. Her parents immigrated here to try to find that American dream. They did not know where they were going to go because they could not afford the rent in these units that Reckler was building in Amityville. This, however, was not a concern of the corporation. This proposal will take away our community by building a city in a residential area. That is why the Island Hills property is zoned for single-family homes, to reflect the community. However, this is not a concern of Reckler's, as they have not changed the proposal from the one that the town of Islip has rejected already, but has resubmitted it as is with no regard for the concerns raised by the community that would be most affected by it. The proposal will take away our streets, as each unit in the proposal only has 1.75 parking spaces. The overflow went up on our streets, specifically 11th Street, Bohemian Parkway, Carey Street, and Sterling Street. All of these streets are narrower by about 6 feet as compared to other streets in the area, since they only have houses on one side. Compared to Spruce Avenue, you'll see what I'm talking about. In addition, the DEIS report suggests that widening Lakeland Avenue from Chester Road to 11th Street to ease the congestion. This will do nothing for the congestion this proposal will create from Chester Road south to Montauk Highway along Lakeland Avenue. Again, this is not a concern of the proposal or of the Reckler Corporation. Supermarket, train stations, and downtown areas will be overwhelmed by such an influx of vehicles and people. Again, Montauk Highway cannot be widened, nor can these parking lots be widened. It is for these concerns and the concerns raised by my neighbors who will be most directly affected by this proposal. I ask the town board and you, Madam Supervisor, to reject this proposal for the good of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Record. And on deck, we have Mr. Shinto.
Hello, my name is Christopher Record. I live at 728 Bohemia Parkway, and lots of my neighbors have been talking tonight. I made lots and lots of notes, and everything's been hit many times. The only thing that hasn't been addressed are directly property values. Okay, property values somehow. This report has put forth so many dishonest things that I can't even understand why anybody is even looking at it, because it doesn't seem to be forthright is a good word. In any case, this will be a negative effect on our property values. The traffic has been over 100 times. I don't even understand why we're here. This has been going on for 5 years, 1,400 units in a little tiny hamlet, increasing the population by almost 25%. I mean, you guys are all smart. You know that this can't be good. So why are we here? You know what? That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Shinto and Salvatore, number 50 is on deck.
My name is Joe Cinto. I live at Ocean View Avenue in Oakdale. And I was president of the Iowa Civic Association a few years back. I am a Vietnam vet. I'm a member of American Legion Post 651 in Sable and the Vietnam Vets Association. Thank you. I'd just like to say that in addition to what everybody else has already said, that this is a project that doesn't fit into the neighborhood. The excess traffic, the pollution, and everything else that has already been restated. I won't restate, but you've heard it all already, so I'm against it. Just let me know.
Thank you, sir. Salvatore Tedesco. And on deck, we have 51.
Yes, my name is Salvatore Tedesco. I live in North First Street, Sayville, New York. For the most part, what I was going to say has already been said. I did write down a couple of words just to take note of what's been discussed tonight, as I'm sure the board has been taking notes. There was discussion about, a sewage treatment plant. As some of you may know, sewage treatment plants, basically in our backyard, is a biological process. It's an imperfect process, of sewage treatment. Blowers break, pumps break, there's odor problems, not to mention every so often you're gonna have 20 to 40 yard trailers of municipal waste sludge, going down the road, being hauled to a sanitary landfill in Pennsylvania. So, that's one issue. Doesn't necessarily affect our community, but the houses, near it. Another issue, the traffic's been, spoken about, the impact on schools, the impact to the neighborhood. There has been some discussion about a gray barn in Amityville, how it was a success. And there was also discussion that was a trailer park. If, I'm not saying it was necessarily an improvement. I know the Reckless has done some good work in Glen Cove as well. As I understand, that was a revitalization project. But here, this is a golf course, which was native to the neighborhood since a lot of residents have been here. And they're proposing this density that, and again, let's speak to the density. A lot of it comes to the density that is literally out of character with the neighborhood. A lot of the issues and problems that are being spoken about has to do with this massive density, 1,400 apartments in our neighborhood, our little hamlet of Sayville in a residential area. And that density is out of character with the neighborhood. And I do appreciate, I believe everybody in this room, well, at least I know, and I would hope a lot of people appreciate that something's going to be built at the golf course. We all know that and stuff, whether it be single family homes or some other dwellings, it's going to be developed, but perhaps not at the density that's proposed. It's out of character in the neighborhood. And I recalled reading something as well that wasn't brought up. Everybody recalls the 2007 housing bust. I recall reading an article in Newsday, went about 2007, 2008, where out of all the villages and the hamlets on Long Island, the housing values, and housing values have been spoken about, the housing values in the hamlet of Sayville were some of the least impacted housing values on the island. And I think that has to do with the character, the character of the neighborhood and a community, all the people that are coming out now. That says something for our neighborhood, says something for the residents of Sayville. And again, it's just that the project, it's out of character for the neighborhood. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. William Meehan. And on deck is Teresa Coates.
Hi, my name is William Ian. I live at 668 Bohemia Parkway, right across the street from the new development that's being proposed. Unlike most of the other people here, I'm actually a new home buyer. I am of the millennial generation, so feel underrepresented here. But I did just want to make it clear to everyone that millennials and everyone my age and the younger ones, they want to buy houses, especially those of us that grew up in this area. We grew up on Long Island. Anyone who would like apartments moves out to the city. They have that lifestyle with the Starbucks under their apartments and everything they could have around them. The people who stay out here, the ones who live out here, want to buy houses, right? I have had friends that maybe go into apartments, the ones in Patchogue, and they're out within 6 months because they see it as a waste of money. Putting money into rent is throwing it away. We want houses. Keep it as houses. It's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Teresa Coates, and on deck, Tara Esposito.
Hi, good evening. One of the detriments to being number 52 is usually a lot of the things have already been said. But I got here at 4 o'clock. I waited out in the cold. I waited online. I'm going to say it. Okay.
Good for you.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Sayville. I'm a homeowner, and I'm here to submit my opposition to the proposed zoning change. I live on Marion Street. I'm between Chester Road and Lakeland Avenue. And honestly, my kids learned to ride bikes on Marion Street. We put one adult at one corner, one at the end, and our kids rode bikes in the street. My husband and I, we purchased our home 21 years ago. We fell in love with this small town, and we raised our children here. Again, you know, like I said, they learned to ride their bikes in the street. They played with our neighbors' children. I'm sorry. We shop on Main Street. We know all our neighbors. They're really wonderful. It is a small town. It's very idyllic. It's quiet. It's a warm community. But I have grave concerns for our small community should the town of Islip move forward with this proposed zone change. Frankly, I find the project preposterous. I mean, clearly you know Sayville, don't you? How this fits into our community, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't match the existing character of our town, and it undoubtedly will diminish the quality of our lives here. I ask you to consider the negative impact of all of the people here have spoken about, the impact that it will have to my family, my neighbors, and my community. You know, I love living in Sayville. It's beautiful. It's clean, it's friendly, it has a great school district, very little crime. I walk my dog every day by the golf course. I pick up. But every day I meet a neighbor, a honk, a wave, a how you doing? How much of that is going to change? The increase in noise, the increase in traffic, the increase in pollution, the burden on our school districts, the burden on our law enforcement and emergency services, it simply will destroy our current way of life. And I ask you to prevent that from happening. Island Hills land is profitable. It's profitable to the developer without a zone change. In fact, our community would welcome more single-family homes being built into our neighborhood. We don't want our small town way of life being destroyed by greedy developers who have no regard for our sense of community and our definition of neighborhood. Please consider the impact and reject the zoning change. And I don't have any more time, which is probably good. Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
Thanks for coming down. Tara Esposito, on deck is number 54. Tara Esposito, number 53? No? Okay, we will go then to John Cavallo, number 54. And numbers 55 through 60 should be lining up, please.
Hi, my name is John Cavallo. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm a Sayville resident for 19 years, a business owner, and a job creator in Islip. The people of Sayville, Oakdale, and Bayport and the surrounding areas are very concerned about the mini-city being proposed at Island Hills. We're concerned about traffic, air quality, our community, and way of life. My parents moved from the boroughs to Nassau in the 50s to raise a family. It was a good life, but but gradually it deteriorated as Nassau became overdeveloped and overpopulated. My 6 brothers and I moved to Suffolk County to get away from the overdevelopment and population growth, the disappearing nature, wildlife, peace and quiet, as many did in this room. We moved east to find affordable housing, clean air, and good quality of life. I can't tell you how thrilled I was the first time I saw deer walking along Montauk Highway, a red fox down the street, or a black squirrel, or the quacking geese flying over my house to feed at Island Hills. So now Nassau's turning into Queens and Suffolk into Nassau, an overpopulated, overdeveloped cement city. I can tell you one thing, that's not what we want for our children and our families. Gray Barn is a giant step in that direction. What we want is to maintain our community and better way of life, one that fits the current character of the community, not what we moved away from. The Gray Barn proposal is a mini city in our small town. It's a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't fit the surrounding towns and our way of life. We're not opposed to sharing our community and making room for others. Most of us support single-family homes with lots of open space or even a park. But 27 3- and 4-story buildings with nearly 1,400 apartments, 2,700 parking spots, increasing the population of the town nearly 20%, a sewage treatment plant is not what the community needs or wants. We ask the town board to please consider the community and taxpayers. Please say no to the zone change and Gray Barn. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you, John. Kevin Shapiro. And on deck is 56, Matt Vaccaro.
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. Kevin Shapiro, 851 Smithtown Avenue in Bohemia. So we came here today to essentially talk about the environment. In this particular case, there are 2 types of environments that we need to consider. The first is the physical environment. The second is the community, culture, and spirit of where we've chosen to live, to work, and to raise our families. In this particular case, these 2 things go hand in hand. What will preserve our way of life will also help preserve the natural surroundings. Conversely, to build 27 huge buildings and contribute significantly to traffic, nitrogen runoff, the depletion of our single source aquifer, the extinction of native flora, increased noise, and to disturb over 100 years worth of toxic chemicals and fertilizers, which include heavy metals on the property, is not in our interest. And furthermore, to strain our critical resources like the community ambulance, the volunteer fire department, and the Connecticut School District. And if we do this, for this damaged physical environment, what as a community will be our payoff? Our payoff will be the irreparable destruction of the spirit of our community, of our way of life. And as stated by everyone essentially who's spoken tonight, the character of our neighborhoods of Sayville, West Sayville, Oakdale, and Bohemia, directly, and all of the other surrounding communities indirectly. Mr. Reckler stated earlier, and has stated on the website, that he's been listening. Listen closely right now, please. We've said one thing as a community, steadfastly and unwaveringly. Don't build this. We don't want this. Mr. Reckler earlier today stated that he lives here. Sir, the Gold Coast of Nassau County is not here. Ladies and gentlemen of the board and Supervisor Carpenter, I ask very respectfully that you please do not forsake us, your supporters, your people, for the sake of developers' greed. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Matt Vaccaro. Matt Vaccaro, number 56. 57, Jacqueline DiLorenzo. Ah.
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline DiLorenzo. I'm a resident of the town of Islip at 111 Nathan Drive in Bohemia. I'm a parent to 3 young children in the Connecticut Central School District. I am part of a strong group of parents who have been fighting for our children's medical freedom in regards to mask and vaccine mandates, and we're also fighting against the indoctrination of our children as pushing through classrooms. Everything we are advocating for is to improve our children's education and bring their lives back to normal. These young citizens of America have given up enough of their lives over the last year and a half as they try to navigate through what COVID has presented to them. This zoning change is now asking them to sacrifice more of their quality of education that they're trying to obtain and that we, the parents, are trying to have them get for them. The schools will be overcrowded and their activities could be limited even more as these social distancing measures are forced upon them every single time they're in school. Their educations will suffer as teachers will then have to attempt to command larger class sizes in a more densely populated school. It's despicable that anyone would want to allow a zoning change that would affect our schools and children so negatively, as we have heard from many residents of the town who have spoken before me tonight. We pay enough taxes for an education in Connecticut, and we first need to help the children who are current residents of the communities under your jurisdiction who have gone through enough over the last year and a half trying to navigate through these changes in their daily lives. They don't need any more. Now, I grew up in Connecticut. I was fortunate enough actually to buy a home in Connecticut, so my children can grow up here too. And I'm not the only alumni who was able to do so. There are many families like mine. I want to see that my children are going to have that same opportunity because it actually is a fantastic community, Connecticut, Sayville. It's a great place to live. And there's a reason why. That's why we come back. I want my children to have that same opportunity. This zoning change is it's gonna take them that away from them. It's gonna rob them of that. So I think besides standing up for all of the people who pay the taxes, need to stand up for our children, the ones who are eventually going to be in your seats, the people who are going to be making decisions. Stand up for them and their futures. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Tom White. Tom White, and please on deck, we have 59.
My name is Tom White. I'm 84 Mobile Street in Sayville. So often in our lives, we find ourselves in a Davy and Goliath situation. And the temptation is to just give up. But I look around this room tonight and in the room down the hall, and I see hundreds of my fellow citizens fighting for the preservation of their peaceful neighborhood, peaceful town, their home values, and their retirement nest eggs. I see hope and light in all of their eyes. It may be hard to see, but look closely. It's somewhere in there. It's shining out between bouts of anger and reckless resentment. What is totally disheartening with this whole situation is the blatant disregard for our small community of Sayville by this building company. The ease of which they disengage and ignore us is disturbing. What's even more saddening is the seemingly lockstep actions of our 5 town board members to go along with every whim that this group seems to have with this behemoth of a project. I wonder why our 5 town board members do not seem to heed the voices of 97% of their constituents who have spoken out negatively against this project. I wonder if they just can't or will not see the problems that are coming our way, the oncoming pollution, congestion, noise, crime, traffic, and the destruction of wildlife and precious green space. Is it worth selling out your quaint town to a couple of absentee landlords from the Gold Coast? I think not. So often Someday, when it comes down to voting on this, I sincerely hope that our town board members remember the hope and the light that they see in the eyes of these people tonight. Do not turn Sayville into Amityville. I'm begging you. No doubt, Angie, Tricia, Jim, Mary Kate, and John, I know that you guys are capable of doing the right thing. I know that. If you vote yes on the vote change, you will have to face all of your constituents afterwards. But more importantly, you will have to look into the eyes of your children and your grandchildren. And you will eventually have to say that I did not have the foresight or the backbone to stop any of this. I beg you, please prove me wrong with all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Shirley Malinowski, number 58, 59. Then we'll go to 60, Patty McClary. Number 61, Donna Mufford.
Yeah, my name is Donna Hufford, 555 Dorm Road in Sayville. It's not far from the golf course, maybe a block or two. I just wanted to say, actually, you know, everyone already said everything pretty much. Transient residents don't contribute to community. We don't want renters. We don't want a zone change at all. We were warned that things go wrong when you try to compromise. We just want no zone change. And like I said, transient residents don't contribute to community, but instead they take from community. And I think really it should be a park. They're the biggest real estate. They said they're one of the biggest real estate businesses in Suffolk. Okay, well, let them take a tax loss. Make it a park.
Thank you, Donna. Betty Hingle. And Margaret Bartek is on deck.
Before you start my clock, I have a letter from an appraiser with his opinion about what the valuations will do to the houses, letters for business owners supporting the community. And these are letters that were previously submitted by residents, and I asked that they be put into the record.
Okay, Betty, thank you.
So my name is Betty Hingle Petroselli. I live at 53 Roosevelt Avenue, Sayville, New York. I've been a resident of Sayville for about 50 years. And the Stop Island Hills and the GIA has become a little notorious, and I always chuckle because when I read the newspaper articles, they say protesters in opposition. But when I look around, I see my family, I see my friends, I see neighbors, I see community members, community leaders, and constituents. And I often hasten to remind them that it's not a fight of opposition, but it's a fight of retention. We have the zoning that we want. The land is zoned for single-family homes, and that's what we are fighting for, retention. What I see before me is our line of defense, our governmental body that protects the community, that enforces the zoning laws, because what the developer wants is an exception that will create 20% more population in our community, an exception that will permanently change the fabric of who we are. The developer is under a burden to show that the public need and public benefit outweighs the environmental impact. He can't meet that burden because there are environmental impacts to our community that just simply cannot be overcome. If you drive down Lakeland Avenue and have any lick of sense, you realize that. But I will refer you to the environmental comments from and the traffic comments that were submitted by the GIA earlier. Eileen submitted them, so you can look at those proofs. Also, I would like to draw attention to the five alternatives that were set forth in the DEIS. The first five were discarded basically by the developer because there wasn't reasonable return on his investment. But last time I checked, I wasn't, nor was the community, nor was this board responsible for how much profit these developers are entitled to make. So I stand here and I raise my voice and I say no zone change. And I stand with my family, my friends, my community, and we stand and we say in a united voice, no zone change.
Thank you, Betty. Margaret Bartik. And on deck is Michael Kennedy.
My name is Margaret Bartik, 239 Terry Road, Sayville, New York. I am against the zone change. I feel I have lived there my whole life. I feel that you represent us, and everything that has been said, I agree with against the zone change. I really can't add to it. There is a lot more I can add to, actually, but I can't go into it because of the time. I feel that the town, we put you in office and you represent the people, and you need to hear our voices and you need to vote with us because you are us and you are supposed to protect us and protect our neighborhood and where we live and where our future. My child is living, he's moving out to Utah because he can't afford here. And it's not because of the rental, it's because of just a lot of other things. But they don't want to live in apartments. They want to live in a home. And with all due respect, I wrote a letter, and basically what it says is, once upon a time in New York City, a great company, CRX, made a donation to the city, and they built a High Line. And I would like for the Reckler to donate it to the town and leave it as a park. Or if nothing else, don't change the zoning. We do not need a 4-story apartment in my neighborhood. All these homeowners want to see homes. They don't want to see apartments. You know what? If you want to live in an apartment, go to the city because everyone's leaving there and there's plenty of spaces.
Thank you. Next speaker, Michael Kennedy. And after Mr. Kennedy, we're going to take a brief 5-minute recess.
Good evening. My name is Michael Kennedy, and I reside at 46 Pearl Court in Sayville. I am only a 35-year resident. Thank you for the opportunity to address the town board in opposition to this project. I will limit my comments to the environmental aspects therein. Our county has spent more than $1 billion preserving open space and farmland, and the town of Islip is missing a golden opportunity to obtain this parcel via eminent domain, as its value as AAA zoned single-family dwelling vacant land. If the developer overpaid in anticipation of a massive zoning change and the town board denies the change, then the Recklers can take their business loss of $40 million and leave us alone. The town of Oyster Bay recently moved to obtain by condemnation a privately owned golf course for the stated purpose of preserving it from development. Similarly, the fight against the Zero Wire Factory Mall lasted for more than 40 years until a project finally acceptable to its neighbors was approved. Buried in the draft environmental impact statement is a survey showing that Island Hills sits squarely, this is their evidence, in the middle of the watershed for Greens Creek. And maybe somebody can explain to me why new high-pressure gas mains were recently installed on the recently repaved Bohemia Parkway, if not in anticipation of approval of this project. The town grants a small break on real property taxes to encourage first responders, hoping that they stay for 20, 30, 40 years with their local fire departments, or I ride with the ambulance company? How many of the residents of the Gray Barn projects will be volunteering, and how many will be looking to stay for the next 20 or 30 years in their new neighborhood? Finally, I ask you to go view the Gray Barn projects in North Amityville, which resemble more a prison than quality housing for the middle class. Please, please have the courage to deny this zoning change in toto.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. If speakers 65 through 70 could line up, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. If everyone would please return to their seats so we could resume.
You might be it.
It's freshly sanitized. We're re-sanitized.
I think we're done. We got one more. Everybody's gone. I got 15 people that aren't here. They left. Although I know you're the
If everyone could please return to their seats so we could resume. I kind of resisted it. If everyone could please take their seats. I think we're missing a councilwoman. So we're up to speaker number 65. Annie Caluso? Gone? Okay. 66. Lillian Morel? Lillian Morel? Glenn Rothbard? Glenn Rothbard? James Barch? James Barch? Birch, I'm sorry. Lisa Hippler? Patrick Fife?
Lisa Hippler.
Oh, Lisa, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so Lisa is number 69, so 70, 71 should be ready.
Oh. Thank you. Lisa Hippler. I live at 755.
Into the microphone, please.
755 Dorham Road. Just a little nervous.
I just want to start by saying a couple things. When you Google Sayville, what comes up? Sayville is a picturesque neighborhood filled with quaint shops, fabulous restaurants, and waterfront activities, making it the perfect town to spend the day. Secondly, I'm sorry. Sayville, once named by California State University Fresno as the friendliest town in America. It is a draw for home buyers because the area is rich with good people. It has a great thriving town and a lot of local attractions that have history. So, why would we build this monstrosity smack in the middle of our residential neighborhood that will not only destroy the town of Sayville, but every town surrounding it, including Oakdale, Bohemia, Bayport, and Islip? My hope is that all of you sitting there supporting this insanity will go home tonight and really think about your vote. Remember, I tell this to my kids, it's not too late to change your mind and do the right thing. By doing this, you will not only save our community, but you will have done something to be proud of. This property was zoned for beautiful houses. That's what it was meant for. It's obvious tonight that the majority of the people here tonight are opposed to the zoning change. If the board is elected by the people to represent the people, that this zoning change is even being entertained. Why would the Recklers buy a property and then try to change the zoning laws? It doesn't make sense. Our community has spoken loud and clear what we want and what is right. Now it's your turn. Please listen to us, listen to our community, and vote no to the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Patrick Fife.
Good evening, Patrick Fife, 19 Ryan Court, Bohemia, New York. I'm a 15-year resident of Bohemia in the Connecticut School District. I volunteer a ton of time in this community, whether it's the Civic Association, the schools, Little League, you name it. I'm supposed to be at CYO basketball practice right now. And the reason that I'm not is because I believe in the spirit of this community, like Mr. Shapiro said. And that's why I give so much time to it. And it pains me to see that this project will destroy a good portion of our community. Look, changes to zoning can be beneficial. I am not against development. However, they must be smart, sensible, and balance the needs of existing residents. This project does none of that. All right, that Hampton Bays project that the gentleman referenced, that was 37 townhouses. This is a 1,300 plus apartment complex, 27 buildings. It's going to put a mini city in the center of residential Sayville. I want to give you some simple stats. It seeks to increase the number of households currently permitted on the property by 1,300%. That is crazy. My 10-year-old son can do the math. All right. This is a crazy proposal. The proposal seeks to increase the projected number of residents permitted on the property by 533%. The zoning projects 414 residents. The proposal projects 2,705. The site would have 392% more dense populated than the rest of Sayville. Right now, we have 16,975 residents in Sayville on 5.4 square miles. You know how much this wants to be? This is 0.175 acres, and they want to put 2,700 more residents on that. The numbers are just crazy. The applicant's DEIS has not and cannot identify a single approved zoning change within the town, perhaps all of Long Island, that involves such a dramatic change to a residential property zoning or a community's character and population. At the town's urging, I attended, I helped set up meetings with the Recklers and their team. None of that input went into this plan. Zero, zip, none. All right. And another thing that didn't go into this plan and was ignored in the DEIS is a letter from the Suffolk County Police Department. And I haven't heard anybody reference it, but I want to mention the Suffolk County Police Department said, quote, new traffic patterns and the increased flow regarding the influx of occupants will increase accidents and calls for police services. This project development would have an impact on the workload of Sector 503 and the 5th Precinct. Emergency response times and public safety is a variable which requires careful consideration. I listen to my police department. I hope you do too. I hope you give this careful consideration because this project does not belong in Sayville, not on this property. You want to put it in a downtown, near transit, near train stations where it's walkable and not going to produce traffic, fine, but not here, not this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Anthony Piccirillo.
Suffolk County Legislator Anthony Piccirillo, 33 Woodhull Lane, Holtsville, New York. Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. Thank you for having this public hearing so the community can voice our concerns and opinions about the Island Hills project. Contrary to what the developer has represented on his website, the public has been largely left out of a pivotal conversation about the future of this massive development in the middle of a residential community. It is my opinion this was done during a pandemic to silence community opposition to this project. From day one, there has been fierce opposition from thousands of community members about the size, scope, and permanent destruction of the suburbs this project will cause. It is not reasonable to put 1,365 units in the middle of a residential community when the space is owned for single-family homes. Additionally, if this monstrosity is approved, there is no doubt in my mind the developer will seek millions of dollars in corporate welfare money in forms of IDA tax breaks, forcing taxpayers to foot the bill for a project that we do not want. This is simply unacceptable, and if I could quote Nancy Reagan, just say no. Thank you.
Next speaker, George Fisher.
These people don't care anything about our community. They don't live in Sayville. We've heard from people who don't live here. We don't want this. We don't need this. It's going to increase our taxes when all the kids need to build the schools and get them bigger. We don't want the traffic. It's time for you to stand up and protect our community, not fall asleep, and do your jobs. Stand up for us. Prove it.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Waldemar Pachulik, number 74. I have 73 Ryan Price. Was that not Mr. Price that just spoke?
That was not, I'm Mr. Price.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's all right, not a problem. So my name is Ryan Price. I reside at 523 Spruce Avenue, about 1 block west of the proposed development. My wife and I moved here about 2 years ago. We are two of the millennials everybody talks about, and we struggled. We saved and we rented. We did all that to buy a home here. And why is that? Because of what Sayville is. It's a close-knit family community. It's family-oriented, it has great schools, and it's where I want my family to flourish. We planted our roots here. And I didn't want to plant my roots where I look out my back window and I see a 4-story monstrosity. I could have moved to Queens and done that. And if I wanted to live next to a sewer plant, I would have bought a house next to one. That wasn't my plan either. We look to you, and we look to you to represent us. We look to you to hear us and to speak for us. I think everybody in this room is giving you a reason tonight why to vote no. And we expect you to do that because you're our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Number 74, Walsamore. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Valdemar Paholik, 100 Tower Street, West Sayville. I came here and I didn't have a plan to talk, but I can maybe add something to our meeting. So here I am. And in the beginning, in the opening speech, there was talk about scientific studies of environment, geology, archaeology. I cannot comment on archaeology, but I was hoping that maybe there would be a Native American burial ground and we'll have nothing to talk about. But on the other subjects, I can say something. The big thing is those nitrates in the water in the sewage treatment system. So only a harmless form of nitrogen would be gaseous nitrogen, and that's the goal, how to get to this. So we start with ammonium, and it's through the stinky process of aeration, as one mentioned here, it has to go to nitrates. But that's where it stops, because water is already look clear, and we know where it's going to end up. Now on the geology, so this ground is headwaters of Greens Creek. Now, for those who don't know what does it mean, actually, is the area where actually there is an uplift of water from the ground. So this water doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from underground. So what does it mean? That any spill which is in that area will not stay in the ground and will not be processed through long trip to the ocean by the bacteria. It will be upwelled and go directly to our South Bay. Now on environment, I am on one of those still brave people who swim in Graveside Bay. And, you know, on average, Graveside Bay is only like six feet in depth. So this season, there was probably like less than 5 days, which I could see the bottom. But when I seen it, then you see those coral color sponges, and you see this live, and you said, wow, these things exist. But you know, don't take those 5 days a year from us. It's nice to have, and with our help, maybe our children at least will swim again in a clean water down there. So that's my comment on science. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Andrea Lafada.
Hi, my name's Andrea Lafada. I live on Roosevelt Avenue in Sayville. I'm obviously very nervous. I've been a resident of Sayville for 11 years. I've lived in Queens and Nassau for most of my life. Eventually, I made a choice to live in Sayville and raise my children here because of the quaint small town feel and waterfront atmosphere. I gave up a life of living in overcrowding and mass population, spending half of my time in traffic, because it was not a life I wanted to live, nor a life I wanted to bring children into. I love when I tell people I live in Sayville, they have no idea where it is. With the population of just 16,853 residents, my family and I have been able to enjoy our town and its beautiful environment without overcrowding and the issues that go along with it. It's a town where everybody knows your name and people have your back when one of us is in need. You can't understand it or the very special character of our town, no matter how many studies you do, unless you actually live here. My children have been able to have a childhood here that I could have never imagined while I was living in those other counties. They get to safely enjoy riding their bikes to Main Street, walk to our small secluded beaches, going to fair after fair, hopping on and off the ferries. But one of the greatest values they have from living here is their respect for the fragility of nature. They have loved being able to share environment with multiple species of wildlife such as deer, ducks, foxes, osprey, and recently a pair of bald eagles. Increase the population by 25%. I guarantee you change the atmosphere of our town for future generations and affect our environment in a negative manner. I am shocked and saddened to see that after 4 years of our voices being heard, Reckler is now posting about Sayville Grayborn on their website. How dare these people think we need something different when we are very happy with our present lifestyle? How dare they propose to come into our quaint little town and just drop 27 buildings with 1,365 apartments onto our golf course, a micro city, if you will, that isn't even zoned for their needs, and then pass it off as satisfying this great need for affordable housing. There is no need in our area. Fairfield has beautiful apartment complexes, and they do have vacancies, and they actually are a little cheaper. Why are our officials even entertaining this? Our officials are voted in by their constituents. They're supposed to be our voice and work for us, to fight for us. This is not what we want. This is not what we need. We do not want to be Patchogue or Concomo or Amityville. We do not need the changes that will occur. And who's going to pay for these changes in the end? Eventually, it's going to be us, the very taxpayers who do not want this monstrosity in our small, quaint town. I've heard Brabant say they sent surveys out to find what Sayville residents want. Can you please raise your hand if you had one of these surveys? Because I know myself and my friends have actually not seen these surveys. This is not just a massive change to the town itself, but to our own lifestyle. Please hear us when we say we do not want this. This is turning Sayville into Nassau County, and that is not who we are. Let Reckler find another spot for their project or build homes according to the present zoning plan. Do not disturb what we have here. This is not for us. This is for greedy businessmen to destroy our town and line their pockets, nothing else. Please
Thank
say
you.
no to Reckler.
Next speaker, Joshua Loria.
I'm Joshua Loria, 268 Poplar Street, Central Islip. I'm a little appalled by the undertone of all of the complaints because my grandparents are Sicilian immigrants who I was raised by. And if we would have had the same undertone when they tried to become homeowners, we wouldn't be standing here right now. These are some of the words that has been used that, again, I'm just appalled by. Words like peaceful community, to suggest that a luxury apartment building will bring non-peace is a little, it's a stretch, okay? The property values, and I do mortgages and real estate. I haven't seen property values go
Joshua,
down
would you
yet.
speak into the microphone, please?
I haven't seen property values go down yet in Long Island, and there's crime all over Long Island. There's people dying from heroin left and right. Sayville borders Patchogue, and it's got the whatever, okay? You know what I mean, all right?
Excuse me, please.
You know what I mean, okay? So the store owners complaining about more people in the neighborhood. You don't want more business? You want to, is that a problem that there are more people going to your stores? These are the words that have just been used. Transient renters. How can it be transient if it's $3,000 a month? Comparing Amityville Graybarn to a prison, I was just there yesterday. It's $3,500 a month for a 2-bedroom. It's a palatial apartment complex. There's 3 pools. I don't know if anybody's in here has been to prison, but that's not what it is when you go to prison. So this type of tone about putting luxury apartments, okay? And this is the thing. This is a point of entry for people that don't have the credit scores yet. I'm sure every homeowner at one point in here had to fight to get into a home, okay? Save, build on their credit. Again, I do mortgages. I see it all the time. If I were to deny somebody based on the fact that they may not be ready to own a $600,000-$700,000 home with $20,000 a year in taxes, it's preposterous. I can't believe that American people are sitting in here complaining about giving, not only is it opportunity, but it's still not even low income housing. How can somebody else afford $3,000 a month on a 2-bedroom when they have to, their only other option is to live in Brentwood or Central Islip for $3,000 a month to rent a house in a hellhole? But to spend $3,000 a month to have a nice apartment in a nicer neighborhood is something that we want to deny? Okay, you do that. Maybe we should build a bubble around Sayville. We'll build a dome around Sayville, and then you just can live in happy.
Please, please.
Okay? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, let's remember that the pastor, let's remember the pastor that spoke about civility. There are just a few speakers left. You've done really, really well. Please don't mess it up now. Please, thank you. Next speaker, Tom Cook.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Cook. I live at 27 Alexander Avenue in Blue Point. I grew up in East Islip and I rented in Sayville for about 2 years. Unfortunately, the house I rented was destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. I can tell you right now that renters do grow attached to towns. I was at the Miracle on Main Street on Saturday. It's the first year in my son's 8 years that we missed the holiday parade. Unfortunately, I was catering a baby shower for my niece, so I could not attend. I've listened to everybody implore you to listen to the constituents. I'm telling you guys, I've worked with Reckler in the past. They are sitting here. They are taking notes. I've seen the changes to job sites that they have done, and they are listening, and they are making notes, and your concerns will be addressed. Now, these zoning laws were written in 1968. Look at the population of Suffolk County in 1968. Look at the population now. Things have to change. People need housing. Now, everybody wants to complain about the price of these apartments. Well, these apartments are beautiful. I've been in the Amityville location. They're gorgeous. So to sit.
Please, no shouting or you will be asked to leave.
So what I'm asking is that you guys do approve the zoning change. And I'm asking everybody here with an open mind to stay the course, wait and see the changes, and I can guarantee you, you will be pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next speaker, Rich Norris. Number 78, Rich Norris. Take us to Antonia Nelson Souter.
Neal and Sauter, but O'Reilly, Mitzi, Neal and Sauter, because my family's been here since 1935. And we've all gone through this before. We have fought the development on the Maritime Museum. We have seen the town go from greenhouses on Broadway to
Just
development.
do your name and address.
Sure. Sayville, 112 Saxon Avenue, where Greenbrook Creek goes through the backyard. And my only comment, I guess, is we've done this. And it's been Republican boards who have protected us before from overdevelopment. And I don't expect Reckler to have our best interest at heart. And I hear the need for more housing. We just spent 10 years in the Marine Corps and I had to move back home to raise the fourth generation of Sayville Bayport hybrid kids. And it was hard to find a house, and I get that. I've also been a renter and had attachments to community as a Marine wife. However, that is not addressing a 4-story monstrosity in a small town. That is not addressing zoning laws and relatively bankrupting the people on Chester Avenue who bought houses with a promise of single-family houses as the worst-case scenario. I understand that the town needs to change, but legacy is important. And I will remind you that the times when we chose restraint and to build smaller and protect green spaces, we improved as a community such as the time we didn't develop on top of the Maritime Museum, the time when Sayville took over the Grange and now is used for prom every year and as a Sayville farmers market. I don't know what's going to be built at Island Hills, but the idea that it's going to be a 4-story monstrosity, which does not address fair and equitable housing, by the way, but only seeks to make certain people wealthy, which if you took a tax hit, I mean, I'm sure you have accountants that could make it less horrible for you, but it will be horrible to turn into Lakeland Avenue and be greeted by that forever. Legacy is important, and I will remind the elected officials that the reason why Sayville was safe and in a bubble in the 70s, the 80s, when other downtowns were crumbling around us was because we kept a small town community and didn't overdevelop. So I implore you to make good decisions and remember the legacy of our small town, which is very generational. Thank you.
Thank you. John Souter. John Souter.
Sorry, John Sauter is being promoted to Lieutenant Colonel tomorrow, so he's driving down to North Carolina, but thank you.
I kind of figured that. Thank you. Next speaker is Steve Brown.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Steve Brown. I live on Durham Road, Sayville. And I just wanted to enter a comment so that it's part of the record tonight. And I would simply ask that when it comes time to vote on this change of zoning, that those who on the town board who have accepted any campaign funds from the applicant, that they recuse themselves from that vote at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Jay Rizzo has the distinction of being the final speaker of the evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Teal Rizzo. I have been a resident of Islip for 57 years. Sayville for probably 32 or 34, I can't remember. I am a business owner, multiple businesses. And I noticed our Chamber of Commerce in Sayville is not present tonight. I'm also aware that Mr. Reckler is a member of the Chamber. As a business owner who has businesses on Main Street and off in the town, I could tell you we do not need the foot traffic. The people who live in this town that own businesses do not want to destroy our town for the few extra feet we might get. And I hope you consider that. I have no idea what the chamber as a whole plans on submitting, but sadly they are missing from tonight's meeting. And this project should not be approved. It does not conform with the community. It's just wrong, and you all know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have reached the end of the public hearing, and I'd like to thank everyone for their input tonight, for the few speakers that made remarks about the fact that they were imploring us to listen. I trust you that we were all listening, and that was all part of this exercise, to really hear from the community. All members of the town board, including Councilwoman Mullen, has been listening the entire time. At this time, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing with the understanding that the opportunity to comment will remain through the end of the month. Comments can be taken until December 31st. They'll be added to our binders, so we will have a complete set of records of all of the comments on the application. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? The hearing is closed. Thank you again, everyone, for coming and your input.